If you're lying here right now, wide awake beneath the soft hum of night, with your thoughts spinning in restless loops, I want to offer you something more than another technique, something deeper than another breath cue or a soothing sound. I want to offer you a true one that changed everything for me. There's a reason why your mind keeps circling the same thoughts, why your anxiety won't ease no matter how many affirmations you try, why even after all your effort to relax, sleep still slips through your fingers. It's not because you're broken, it's not because you're doing anything wrong, and it's certainly not because peace isn't meant for you. It's because no one ever told you about the secret beneath the struggle. The hidden weight we carry when we resist what is a weight that tightens the body, agitates the breath, and locks the mind in battle. But over 2,500 years ago, a man named Siddhartha, known as the Buddhist, discovered something extraordinary, a simple, powerful truth that the source of mental suffering is not our pain, but our resistance to it. He didn't just teach us how to cope, he showed us how to stop suffering at its root. So tonight, beneath the soft cover of darkness, I invite you to let go of the fight. Not because you're weak, but because you deserve to feel what it's like to rest in your natural peace. The kind of peace that arises not from fixing or escaping, but from allowing. Welcome to my channel where ancient wisdom meets your modern struggles, and where sleepless minds come home to stillness. If it feels right, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Are you awake in New Jersey, trying to quiet a restless heart in California, or slowly drifting beneath stars in some far corner of this beautiful earth? Wherever you are, we're breathing together now. Take this moment to fully arrive. Get comfortable, adjust your blanket, feel the support beneath you, let your body soften, let your eyes close gently. And if they don't want to close, that's okay too, because this is not a performance. There's nothing to control here, just notice it. Let your body rest more deeply than before. Returning home? You've made it to chapter 2 of this journey, not just through words, but through your own sacred willingness to explore something deeper than comfort, deeper than thought, deeper than all the rushing, reaching, and resisting. Tonight, we open the second gate, a doorway into ancient understanding, and yet so tenderly human, it feels like it was written just for you. The Buddha's insight was not a miracle. It was not lightning from the sky. It was not granted by gods. It was the kind of truth that lives quietly inside every human heart. And once he saw it, he could never unsee it. The prince who walked a whalelet's return. For a moment, to the man before he became the Buddha, a prince, a seeker, a young man named Siddhartha. He lived in a palace surrounded by luxury, abundance, and protection. His father, the king, wanted to shield him from the world's pain, from sickness, aging, and death. And so, for many years, the young prince was never allowed to leave the palace walls. But something in him, something ancient and curious, kept whispering that this could not be the whole truth. And one day, Siddhartha stepped outside. Just a short ride beyond the gardens changed everything. He saw for the very first time an old man bent with time, a sick man trembling with pain, and a lifeless body. Being carried to the funeral ground, his world cracked open. It was not the tragedy that shocked him most, not even himself. And something inside him whispered, "If I do not understand this, I will never be free." Leaving the world of comfort that he was seeking something for all of us, a path that could show the way beyond suffering, not just for one man, but for anyone who longed for liberation. He left his silks and jewels behind, cut his hair, donned the robes of a wandering monk, and began a journey no map could follow. He searched through every tradition he could find, sat at the feet of sages, practiced intense austerities, starved his body. After years of searching, Siddhartha had to admit he was no closer to peace than when he began. He had tried both extremes, pleasure and pain, exhausted and empty. He sat beneath the shade of a fig tree, the Bodhi tree, and made a quiet vow. "I will not rise from this spot until I see." clearly into the nature of suffering and the path beyond, his mind. He didn't suppress thoughts. He simply observed, and what he discovered became the foundation of everything we now call Buddhism. He saw, with radiant clarity, that pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is not. Pain comes from the body, from life's impermanence, from changes, losses, and moments beyond our control. But suffering, the extra layer of anguish, comes from the mind's resistance to what already is. The two arrows, let's imagine. This as a metaphor the Buddha later taught his disciples. A person walking through the forest is struck by an arrow. That arrow, sharp, sudden, and painful, is life's natural pain. But now, imagine that same person turns to themselves and fires a second arrow, a mental one. I should have been more careful. This always happens to me. Why, can't I do anything right? I'm weak. This is my fault. That second arrow, that judgment, shame, resistance, and self-blame is what we call suffering. And here's the insight that changed the world. We cannot always avoid the first arrow. He saw another truth. Suffering comes not just from pain, but from craving. Not only craving for pleasure or possessions, but craving for things to be different than they are. We crave for sleep to arrive when summoned, for the past to be rewritten, for the future to be guaranteed, and when life doesn't meet these cravings, we suffer. The mind says, this should not be. And in that rejection, we separate ourselves from the moment. But what if we stop demanding that life match our preferences? What if we allowed the moment to be as it is? Awakening, the end of the fight hand. That is what Siddhartha did under the Bodhi tree. He let go of the fight. He let the storm of thoughts arise and fall. He let the memories pass. Without clinging, he let the pain be pain. Without turning it into identity. And somewhere in that letting go, a light dawned. He saw that peace is not the absence of pain, but the absence of resistance. And with that, he awakened not into a perfect person, not into a god, but into a deeply present human being, one who no longer feared reality. The Four Noble Truths after his awakening. Siddhartha, now the Buddha, shared his first teaching. It was simple, honest, and compassionate to the core. It came to be known as the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering in life. No one escapes it, not even the wise. Illness, aging, disappointment, heartbreak, all part of the human path. Suffering has a cause. It comes from craving the mind's resistance, its endless thirst for things. To be other than they are, there is an end to suffering. Not an end to all pain, but to the extra suffering caused by the second arrow. Not a belief system, but an invitation. An invitation to stop fighting the river of life, and instead, learn how to flow within. Why this matters for you, you may not be sitting under a Bodhi tree. You may be lying in bed, restless, tired, overwhelmed. You may be grieving something unspoken, or battling thoughts that won't quiet down, or carrying expectations that exhaust you. But the Buddha's insight was not for monks only. It was for you, right here, right now. You don't have to escape the world to find peace. You don't have to erase your emotions to be free. You only have to see clearly, to recognize that resistance is optional. To realize that your thoughts are not enemies, they are waves. To understand that your experience is not wrong, it's just what's here. And in that seeing, suffering begins to dissolve. Not instantly, not completely, but undeniably. A moment of practice right now. Feel the breath in your body. Not a deep breath, not a forced breath, just the one that's already there. Let it be as it is. Notice any places in your body that feel tight. Not to fix them, but to honor them. Whisper to those places with you're allowed to be here. This is how we stop shooting the second arrow. This is how peace begins, not in silence. He gave us a mirror. He held it up and said, look, see clearly, and you'll know the way. His insight lives not in scriptures or statues, but in the very heart that beats in your chest, the insight that says, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your past. You are the one who notices, the one who breathes, the one who sees clearly, and that seeing is the beginning of freedom. Chapter 3. The Mind's War with Reality. Why we resist the present and how to make peace with what is. Close your eyes. If you haven't already, let your body begin to soften. Let the bed hold your weight. Let gravity take over. You've carried enough today. There's nothing to solve here, nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. Only one thing is asked of you now: to be with this moment, exactly as it is. This is Chapter 3 of our journey, the mind's war with reality, and it may reveal to you something you've always felt, but perhaps never had the words to name. The war we don't know. We're fighting. You may not realize it, but most of us are at war. All the time, not with other people. So tired, that's why peace seems so far away. This war is invisible. It happens inside your mind, in the gap between what is and what your mind thinks should be. You feel it when you're stuck in traffic, and your thoughts scream, this should not be happening. You feel it when sadness arises, and the mind whispers, I don't want to feel this, go away. You feel it when plans fall apart, when people don't behave the way you expected, when life changes before you're ready. In every one of these moments, a subtle resistance arises, and that resistance becomes suffering. The core belief that fuels the war at the center of this war is a single. It sounds innocent enough, but this one belief creates an ocean of inner tension. This shouldn't have happened to me. I shouldn't feel like this. They should have treated me better. Things should have gone differently. This gap between life and our mental picture of life is where stress lives, where anxiety grows, where peace gets postponed over and over. The mind says, this moment isn't enough. Something is missing. Something is wrong. And the body responds by tightening, clenching, bracing, resisting. You may not call it a war, but your nervous system knows it as battle. The Buddha saw this clearly, but by our resistance to life, by our attachment to how things were supposed to be, he saw that pain is part of life, is optional. Even in grief, even in anxiety, resist reality at all. Why would something as natural as life, this ever-unfolding present moment, feel like a threat? To make sense of the world, but in its noble attempt to keep us safe, it often confuses discomfort with danger. It believes that if it can just think hard enough, plan well enough, control everything tightly enough, life is full of surprise, death, birth, endings, beginnings. You've cleared your schedule. You've envisioned calm. But just as you settle in, a relative calls with upsetting news, or your child spills juice all over the floor, or your thoughts begin racing with worries you didn't invite. Suddenly, peace is gone. But is it the event that stole your peace? Or is it your reaction to the event? Your belief that this shouldn't be happening right now? It's not that rest isn't important. It's that when we demand perfect conditions for peace, we become its prisoner. We tell ourselves, I can only be calm if everything goes according to plan. But life rarely obeys our plans. Peace is unconditional. What the Buddha discovered, and what your body already knows, is that true peace has no conditions. It doesn't wait for life to cooperate. It doesn't depend on other people's behavior. It doesn't require silence or perfection or control. Peace arises. Even if it's messy, even if it's emotional, even if it's not what you wanted. Imagine two people in the same storm. Imagine this. Two people are caught in a sudden downpour. One curses the sky. They shout, this is ridiculous. I had plans. I wasn't ready. They run for cover. They're cold, wet, angry. Their mind spins for hours about the ruined day. The other simply pauses. They feel the rain on their skin. They walk home slowly, letting the storm be what it is. Same rain, same event, two different experiences, because one fought reality and the other flowed with it. The mind's favorite weapons. That mind doesn't just resist reality through thoughts, it uses old habits, weapons we don't realize we're holding. Perfectionism, the belief that if we just do everything flawlessly, nothing will go wrong. Control, micromanaging people and outcomes to protect ourselves from disappointment. Distraction, staying busy, always entertained to avoid facing what we feel. Judgment, criticizing ourselves or others as a way to feel in control, are not signs that we're weak. They are signs that we're scared. Scared of meeting life, raw, uncertain. When we stop fighting reality, even for a moment. Something beautiful begins to happen. We soften, we breathe, we feel our body again. Tension begins to release from places we didn't even know were tight. We realize this moment is not perfect, but I'm safe. It's not what I planned, but I'm here. It's not under control, but it's still okay. That is the beginning of awakening, not some grand enlightenment in a distant monastery, but a simple willingness to meet reality without resistance. That is what the Buddha taught. That is what your soul already longs for. A gentle practice now. Let's practice right now. Notice if there's anything in you that is fighting something. Maybe a thought you want to get rid of, an emotion you wish wasn't here, a memory that keeps returning. I don't need to understand you. Right now, I only need to stop pushing you away. Let the mind's war dissolve like ink in water. Let your breath rise and fall without effort. There is no war to fight here, no enemy in sight, just life. Moving through you, you were never meant to fight alone. And maybe the most important truth of all, you are not alone. Every human heart has fought this war. Every soul has whispered. Every mind has begged for control. Every body has tightened in the face of the unknown. But peace is not won. It is allowed. It arrives not as a victory, but as a surrender. Tonight, may that surrender begin in you, not as defeat, but as the deepest kind of strength, the kind that says, I no longer need to fight what is. Chapter 4. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. How releasing control brings peace, strength, and real freedom. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper into the bed. Let the breath move in and out of your body. Without your help, let the earth hold your weight. Just for tonight, let yourself stop holding everything together. You don't have to carry so much anymore. Welcome to Chapter 4. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. This may be the chapter your heart has been waiting for, because somewhere in your life right now, you may be holding on too tightly to a plan, a person, a version of yourself, to a future that won't arrive the way you imagined, to a past that keeps echoing long after it ended. And maybe you've heard someone say, just let it go. If it were easy, as if the pain or the story or the hope you carry could just vanish. But letting go is not forgetting. It is not apathy. It is not quitting. Letting go is something much more sacred. It is the release of inner resistance to what already is, what we think. Letting go means let's start with the misunderstanding. When people hear the phrase let it go, many react with frustration or fear because they assume it means stop caring, give up your dreams, let people walk all over you, tolerate injustice, abandon hope, accept being hurt. But that is not what true letting go means in the Buddhist path, not even close. Letting go doesn't mean giving up on life. It means giving up the fight with life. You can still care deeply. You can still work wisely. You can still love wholeheartedly. You can still dream with open hands. Letting go simply means you stop clinging to control, clinging to how things were supposed to be, clinging to thoughts that don't serve you, clinging to emotions that want to move through you, not stay stuck inside you. The Buddha's image of the burning rope in ancient Buddhist texts, letting go, is sometimes described like this. A man is holding a rope, but the rope is on fire, and he's gripping it tighter, believing it's the only thing keeping him safe. He says, if I let go, I'll fall. If I let go, I'll be lost. If I let go, I'll be alone. But the longer he holds on, the more the fire burns his hands. Letting go isn't giving up. It's stopping the harm. It's realizing that the fall you fear is just a return to solid ground. What happens when you don't let go? Let's look gently at what happens when we keep holding on too long. You stay in relationships that drain you because you fear being alone more than being unhappy. You overthink every decision because you're afraid of making the wrong choice. You keep chasing perfection because you believe rest must be earned by struggle. You replay old conversations hoping the past might rewrite itself if you think hard enough. But all of this is exhausting. This is the mind's war we talked about in Chapter 3, fighting against what already happened, against who someone have already shown themselves to be, against the reality that life is unfolding on its own terms. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing when the rope is burning your hands and gently, kindly, lovingly loosening your grip. What letting go actually means: letting go doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop resisting what you feel. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without needing control. Letting go doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you act without the anxiety of outcomes. Letting go means you let sadness come and go without labeling it bad. You allow love to exist even if it changes form. You stop rehearsing life and begin experiencing it. You bow to uncertainty, not because you like it, but because it is the nature of life. In Buddhism, this is called non-attachment. It's not detachment. It's not coldness. It's warmth without stickiness. Love without possession. Effort without strain. Real life letting go. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Mira. She had worked hard her whole life, a successful teacher, a devoted mother. But when her children left home and her husband grew distant, Mira found herself gripped by anxiety and sadness. She tried to keep everything together, organizing every detail, planning every holiday, worrying about her kids constantly. One night, she broke down, and her therapist said something gentle. "Mira, what if your job now is not to hold everyone else up, but to let yourself fall into your own life?" At first, she thought it sounded like failure, but in time, she realized letting go meant allowing life to move, to let her children grow, to let her grief breathe, to let her own soul have space to rise again. Myra didn't stop loving. She simply stopped gripping, and peace returned. The river and the rock. Imagine standing in a river. You're holding onto a rock, planting your feet against the current. You're afraid that if you let go, the water will carry you away. But the truth is, the river knows how to carry you. The rock is not safety. It's resistance. Letting go means lifting your hands, allowing yourself to be guided, trusting that the flow of life doesn't need your force to move you in the right direction. Yes, you will pass through narrow canyons. Yes, there will be twists and unexpected bends. But what you'll discover is that you float. A soft practice, the art of release. Let's try something now, very gently. Take a breath, feel it, move through your body now. Bring to mind something you've been gripping. It might be a thought, a relationship, an outcome you're trying to force, a regret you won't forgive, a version of yourself you're afraid to let go of. Now imagine holding it in your hands and gently ask, is this helping me or is this hurting me? Am I holding this out of love or out of fear? Now imagine not dropping it, but simply loosening your fingers, giving it room to breathe, room to shift, room to return if it's meant for you. This is the sacred art of letting go. It is not a push, it is a pause. Letting go of what you cannot control. Most of life is outside your control. You can't control time. You can't control other people's emotions. You can't control the weather, the economy, or the way your body ages. And yet we spend so much energy trying. But here's what you can control: your attention, your breath, your responses, your presence. your willingness to let go of what's not yours to carry when you redirect your energy away from control. And toward clarity, you begin to feel peace again. Not because everything is okay, but because you are okay, even when things are not. What you make space for when you let go, you don't lose. You make space for healing clarity. New connections, unexpected blessings, stillness. Life abhors a vacuum. When you let go of what's no longer serving you, life rushes in to offer something else, but the hand must be open to receive, and the heart must be unburdened to feel. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to loosen your grip. You are allowed to stop fixing everything. You are allowed to say, I don't know what happens next, and that's okay. You are allowed to let life surprise you, to trust that what is meant for you will stay and what is not will go. With grace, letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without suffering. It means you give your love to the moment, not just to the outcome. It means you show up without clinging. A final whisper so tonight. As your body sinks into rest, as your thoughts slow down, let go of the idea that letting go is defeat. Let go of the belief that you must grip life to live it well. Let yourself be held by something deeper, the breath, the silence, the still presence of now, and say softly to yourself, I am letting go, not to give up, but to return to peace. And in this peace, you are free. Chapter 5. The Paradox of Peace. Why searching for peace keeps it away, and how surrendering to the present moment sets you free. This chapter is part of your ongoing Zen sleep story and mindfulness series, The Weight of Resistance. It explores a central spiritual paradox that the more we chase peace, the more elusive it becomes. And yet, when we stop seeking and simply become present, peace arises naturally. This poetic, emotionally grounding script exceeds 9,000 characters and is ideal for sleep, spiritual reflection, or emotional release. Chapter 5. The Paradox of Peace. Welcome back, dear listener. Take a moment to feel your body as it settles, as it softens, as it surrenders to rest. Feel the space you're in, not just the room around you, but the quiet inner room inside your own chest, where something ancient waits, always still, always aware. You are safe here. You are exactly where you need to be. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything. This is not a lesson to memorize. It is an experience to receive. Tonight we arrive at Chapter 5, The Paradox of Peace, and this one is not about adding anything new to your mind. It's about removing something old, the idea that peace is somewhere else just beyond this moment. Just after this next solution, just beneath the final problem, this chapter may change how you relate to everything. Because peace isn't what we've been taught it is. The search that never ends. Let's start with a familiar question. How long have you been searching for peace? Months, years, a lifetime. Most of us have been chasing peace the way others chase wealth or fame, as if it's something to attain. A final state we arrive at. Once everything is figured out, we read the books, we listen to the meditations, we go on the retreats. We declutter the house, we fix the diet, we organize the schedule, we try to make our minds still, but somehow, the more we try, the further peace seems to drift away. Like a mirage in the desert, just one more change, one more step, one more breakthrough. And then I'll feel calm. But what if peace isn't missing? What if we're just looking for it in all the wrong places? The mind that seeks can't rest. Here's where the paradox begins. The very act of seeking peace is the thing preventing it. Let that sink in. Imagine standing in a river. The water is calm. The current is gentle, but you keep splashing, reaching, fixing, adjusting, analyzing. You stir the water, trying to make it still. That's what the mind does. It turns peace into a task, and so it creates more agitation in the process. The mind thinks, once I fix my anxiety, I'll be peaceful. Once I heal my past, I'll feel whole. Once my relationships are perfect, I'll feel safe. Once I have more time, money, clarity, then I can relax. But peace does not wait on your conditions. It does not arrive when life is tidy. Peace is not the prize at the end of your healing. It is the space in which healing unfolds, the Buddha and the unreachable peace one day. A student came to the Buddha in deep frustration. He said, "I've been meditating for weeks. I've tried every breathing technique. I've chanted mantras, I've fasted, but I still feel restless. What am I doing wrong?" The Buddha smiled gently and said, "You are like a man who holds a torch in his hand and searches the whole world for fire." This is the paradox. Peace is not out there. It is not in some future where everything goes your way. It's in the part of you that has never been touched by chaos. It is not created. It is revealed when you stop seeking. The peace beneath the noise. Imagine this. You're walking through a dense forest. Birds are calling. Wind rustles the trees. The world is alive and full. But then you come across a small stream. You sit, you listen, and suddenly you realize beneath all the movement is silence. Beneath the leaves fluttering, beneath your own breathing, beneath the thoughts swirling, there is stillness. Always there, always available. You didn't create it, you just finally noticed it. That is what true peace is. It's not the absence of thought, but the presence of awareness. It's not the end of emotion, but the absence of struggle against emotion. It's not a life without difficulty. It's a relationship with difficulty that doesn't add resistance. Why the chase fails? Let's be honest. The idea that we must find peace is exhausting, because it always depends on something else. The right relationship, the right job, the right mental state, the right version of yourself. The problem with this is that the bar keeps moving. Every time you achieve one thing, the mind says, yes. But now, what about this? And so the chase continues. But when you stop, when you sit quietly in your own company, when you let the moment be exactly as it is, messy, unresolved, imperfect, you begin to taste something subtle, not ecstasy, not fireworks, just okay-ness. The peace of not needing anything to be different for just this breath. That is enough. The ocean and the wave, there's a beautiful teaching from Zen that says, you are not the wave. You are the ocean right now. You may feel like a wave rising and crashing with every thought, every emotion, every news headline, every change in your external world. But the deeper truth is that beneath all this movement, you are still. You are not just the part of you that gets anxious. You are also the space that notices the anxiety. You are not the fear. You are the one who feels it and breathes through it. That silent witness within you is peace itself. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's always here. What if peace is already here? What if nothing needs to change? What if you are not broken? What if peace is not a future achievement, but a present permission? Permission to stop fixing, to stop analyzing, to stop striving, and instead to rest in what's already here, to become the space that welcomes everything and resists nothing. That is where peace lives, not in perfection, but in permission. A gentle practice, noticing peacelets. Try something now, a soft invitation. Let your breath deepen. Let your eyes soften, even behind closed lids. Ask gently, what is here if I stop trying to change anything? You might notice tension in the body. Okay, let it be there. You might notice thought loops. Okay, let them pass. You might feel nothing. That too is welcome. Now drop even the idea of doing this right. Just breathe. Just be. Let this moment unfold without interference and in the quiet spaces between thought and the gentle rhythm of your breath. You may begin to feel it, not a peak of joy, not a rush of insight, but something far more trustworthy. Stillness, simplicity. Enoughness, that is peace. What real peace feels like peace doesn't always feel like bliss. Sometimes it feels like the courage to sit with grief. Sometimes it feels like the permission to not have an answer. Sometimes it feels like simply breathing through discomfort without flinching. Real peace is quiet. It doesn't need to be dramatic to be real. It's the moment you stop resisting your sadness and just let it be sad. It's the moment you stop needing closure and accept that some things will remain open. It's the moment you stop clenching your future and feel the ground under your feet here and now. The paradox unfolded, so here is the paradox in its purest form. You cannot get peace by seeking it. You can only remember that it's already here. It is not something you earn. It's what you return to when you let go of the mind's noise. When you stop doing peace and start being peace, that is the invitation of this moment. Not to reach, but to relax. You are already whole tonight if your mind starts seeking. Again, if it says, "How do I hold on to this feeling?" or "What do I do next?" gently smile and say, "There's nothing to do. I am already where I was trying to go." Let the breath carry you back. Back to the body. Back to the present. Back to the place you never left. Back to peace. Chapter 6. Coming home to now, wherever you are. Peace begins in presence. This chapter is part of your series, The Weight of Resistance, and follows Chapter 5, The Paradox of Peace. In this chapter, we explore how returning to the present moment, the now, is the ultimate spiritual homecoming. No matter how far the mind wanders or how fragmented life becomes, the act of arriving in the now is a form of liberation. This script exceeds 9,000 characters and is crafted for deep reflection, guided meditation, spiritual insight, and bedtime. Listening, Chapter 6. Coming home to now, the place you've always been, but rarely noticed. Take a slow, gentle breath. Inhale through the nose, exhale softly through the mouth. Now again, but this time feel the breath like a wave, arriving, departing, effortless, unforced, always here. Welcome to Chapter 6, Coming Home to Now, not to an idea of peace, not to a future of clarity, but to the very thing you've been carrying all along. This moment, not the next one, not the one that just passed. This one, wherever you are listening, whether you're in a quiet bedroom in Tokyo, a rainy apartment in New York, or a small village nestled in the hills of southern India. Right now, you are here. And that is enough. The mind's favorite illusions, past and future. The mind is a brilliant traveler, a time machine that revisits every moment you regret and races ahead to every moment you fear. It says things like, "What if I had said that differently? Why didn't I see the signs? What if I fail again? What if this doesn't work out? When will I finally feel free?" But the past is a memory, and the future is imagination. Neither exists outside your thoughts. All suffering begins with forgetting this. The Buddha taught that clinging to the past is like chasing shadows, and fearing the future is like trying to predict the shape of the wind. Only now is real, and yet we keep abandoning it as if the answers live elsewhere. But the truth is, now is where everything happens. The next breath, the quiet shift in your body, the way your soul exhales when you stop running. You don't need to go back in time. You don't need to jump ahead, because your life is always unfolding here. The present is not just a concept, it's a place you may have. Heard people say, be in the present moment. Live in the now. Practice mindfulness. But what does that mean? Isn't every moment the present moment? In theory, yes, but in reality, we're often physically here, while mentally miles away. We're eating lunch, but scrolling. Through yesterday's arguments, we're walking outside, but worrying about tomorrow's deadlines. We're talking to a friend, but rehearsing what we'll say next. And in doing so, we miss life. We miss the taste, the sound, the scent, the feeling, the miracle of what's happening right now. to come home to now, to return to your body, to your breath, to your breath, to your life as it is, not as your mind says it should be. This isn't a metaphor. It's an anchor. Presence is the only place where peace can bloom. The story of the monk who rushed enlightenment there is a Zen story of a young monk named Kaoru. He asked his teacher, "Master, how long will it take me to reach enlightenment?" The master replied, 10 years, Kaoru said. "What if I study very hard? What if I meditate day and night?" The master paused and said, "Then it will take 20 years. Confused, Kaoru asked, "Why more?" The master smiled, "Because the more you rush, the further you are from being here." This story reveals something essential. Trying to arrive somewhere faster pulls you away from where you already are, and presence is the door to every transformation. The body always lives in, now here's a secret, the mind lives in time, but the body lives in presence. Even when your thoughts are traveling, your body is here. Your lungs breathe this breath. Your heart beats this moment. Your skin feels this air. Your belly holds this tension or softness. So if you ever feel lost in thoughts, return to your body, not to analyze it, but to feel it, not to judge it, but to inhabit it. Try this now. Feel the air against your skin. Notice the sensations in your feet. Sense the rhythm of your breath, how it enters and leaves without needing your help. This is now no effort, no force, just being. Your body is not in a hurry. It is always trying to bring you home. Resistance is always a rejection. Now think of the last time you were deeply anxious. What was happening? Most likely it wasn't the event itself, but your mind resisting the event. Anxiety says, "This shouldn't be happening. I can't handle this. What if it gets worse?" But presence says, "This is happening, and I am still." Here, suffering begins when we leave the moment and enter the imaginary battlefield of past and future. But peace begins when we return to what is the sound of the fan, the sensation of the blanket, the feeling of breath moving in your ribs. These are not distractions, they are gateways. Even pain lives in the now, you might ask. But what if now is uncomfortable? What if now holds grief, fear, or uncertainty? Here's the miracle. Even in discomfort, peace is possible if we don't resist it. The pain of a moment is like a cloud. Dense, yes, dark sometimes, but it passes through a sky that doesn't fight back. You are the sky. The emotion may be intense, but the moment itself is always manageable. If you stay with it, it's when the mind says, "This should be over. This is too much. I shouldn't feel this way," that suffering begins. So when now feels painful, don't run. Stay, breathe, witness. You'll discover something profound. Even pain, when held in presence, loses its power to destroy you. Presence doesn't require perfection. You don't need a perfectly quiet room. You don't need to sit cross-legged. You don't need incense or mantras. You can come home to now while washing dishes, walking your dog, talking to a stranger, or lying in bed wondering how to fall asleep. The moment is always here, inviting you to return. Presence is not a technique. It's a relationship between you and life as it is. The taste of now. A simple practice. Try this practice gently. Bring your attention to the sounds around you. Don't label them, just listen. Notice the contact points of your body back against the bed, hands resting. Feel the in-breath, then feel the out-breath. Ask quietly, "Can I allow this moment to be enough?" You may notice thoughts arise. Let them. You may feel restlessness. Allow it. This practice isn't about changing the moment. It's about being with it as it is, as you are. Hear what you find when you return. So, what do you find when you return to now? Not a fantasy, not instant bliss, but something more trustworthy. The steadiness of your breath, the groundedness of your body, the simplicity of this moment, the absence of should, the end of mental chasing. You find yourself again, not the one you perform, but the one who breathes and feels and knows without effort. You realize there is nothing missing in now, only in our absence from it, coming home again and again. You don't have to stay present forever. You just have to return. Again and again. Each breath is an invitation. Each sensation is a doorway. Each moment is a return, and eventually, presence becomes your habit, not a state you visit, but a home you live in, a place where nothing needs fixing, a place where you are already enough, a place where the weight of resistance melts and all that's left is peace. A final whisper so tonight, as you rest in your body, as you breathe through the silence, as the world softens around you, let go of chasing peace, let go of fixing the past, let go of controlling what's next, and just be here now. This breath, this moment, this life, you are home. You always were. The middle way between force and surrender chapter. The middle way between force and surrender. Now that we understand how resistance creates suffering, let's explore the 4 insights that can set you free from this unnecessary struggle. The Buddha called these the 4 Noble Truths, but don't let the formal name intimidate you. Think of them as a doctor's diagnosis and treatment plan for the human condition, a practical guide to understanding why we suffer and how we can find relief. Truths aren't religious doctrine or abstract philosophy. They're observations about how life works inside. First truth is simply this: difficulty is woven into the fabric of human existence. This isn't a pessimistic view of life. It's a realistic one. We live in bodies that age, get sick, and eventually die. We form relationships that sometimes bring conflict, misunderstanding, and loss. We have minds that worry, compare, and feel overwhelmed by the complexity of modern life. We face changes we didn't choose, disappointments we didn't expect, and uncertainties we can't resolve. Here's what's liberating about accepting this first truth. When you stop pretending that life should be free from challenge, you stop taking difficulties personally. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "How can I move through this with grace?" Instead of feeling singled out by problems, you recognize them as part of the shared human experience. Stories of acceptance. Take Alina, a mother whose 8-year-old son was diagnosed with a learning disability. Her first response was to search for someone to blame: the school system, her own parenting, interviewing specialists, and trying to fix what she saw as a problem that shouldn't exist. Everything shifted when she finally accepted that challenges like this are part of life, not evidence that something had gone wrong. This acceptance didn't mean giving up hope. It meant stopping the additional suffering caused by fighting reality. His industry, he felt victimized by forces beyond his control. The turning point came when he realized that change is part of business, not a personal failure. Once he stopped resisting, he could focus his energy on creative adaptation, rather than futile resistance. Even emotional pain isn't a sign something is wrong with you. Sadness after loss, anxiety before big events, and frustration when things go wrong are natural responses, not flaws. When you accept that difficult emotions are part of life, you can stop judging yourself for having them. The second truth, resistance, creates suffering while pain is inevitable. The second truth tells us the suffering. It's about our mental relationship to what happens. Imagine 2 people passed over for the same promotion. One spirals into self-doubt, overanalyzes everything, and carries resentment for months. The other feels disappointed, grieves, asks for feedback, and redirects their energy to new opportunities. Same event. One fights it, the other accepts it. Case study: Sarah and anxiety. Sarah, a mother, struggled with anxiety about her daughter's choices. She'd stay up at night, imagining worst-case scenarios and exhaust herself trying to control the uncontrollable. The anxiety was natural. This was the first arrow. But her worry loops and catastrophic thinking were the second arrow, the suffering. Added by resisting uncertainty, when Sarah learned to feel love without feeding the anxiety, she became more present and helpful to her daughter. The third truth, suffering can end. This truth offers hope. The suffering caused by resistance can end not because life becomes perfect, but because we can learn to stop adding unnecessary pain on top of life's challenges. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means developing the capacity to feel everything fully without being destroyed by it. Like learning to swim, you don't stop feeling the water, but you no longer fear drowning in it. You don't need your circumstances to change. Freedom from unnecessary suffering is available. Now, by learning to meet what arises without adding resistance, example, James and the cascade of Chris S. James lost his job, faced his father's cancer diagnosis, and had marital problems all in one season, but he approached each issue directly without the overlay of, "This shouldn't be happening." Each pain was real, but he stopped multiplying it through resistance. To his surprise, he found he could handle much more than he believed. The fourth truth: there is a path to freedom. This final truth is practical. It shows that we can cultivate freedom through specific practices. This isn't about forcing yourself to feel better. It's about learning to meet life with awareness and acceptance. It includes observing thoughts and emotions, like clouds passing through the sky, cultivating compassion, developing wisdom, and uncovering peace by removing obstacles, like clearing debris from a stream stop, damming up life with resistance, and the water flows freely again. Rebecca's journey. Rebecca, an ER nurse, used to carry every patient's tragedy home. Learning to meet experiences without resistance didn't make her care less. It helped her avoid burnout and serve with more presence. She felt natural sadness, without the added weight of believing she should save everyone. Wu Wei, effortless action. These four noble truths prepare us for the middle way between force and surrender. An ancient Taoist principle called Wu Wei, non-doing, reveals how to act with life instead of against it. Not passivity, but intelligent, graceful participation in life's rhythm. Like water flowing around rocks, never fighting the mountain, yet shaping the landscape over time. Maria, the water in the workplace. Maria, a project manager, used to force outcomes with logic and pressure. Everything changed when she approached meetings like water, listening first, flowing around resistance, gradually shifting direction through gentle persistence. She influenced more by controlling less. Flow states and natural action. Great athletes and musicians enter a state of Wu Wei, responding rather than forcing. Dancing with life. Michael Jordan or a jazz pianist doesn't dominate the moment. They harmonize with it. You felt this too in deep conversation, creative absorption, or silent awe. The farmer's horse. An old story illustrates Wu Wei. A farmer's horse runs away. Neighbors say, "How terrible." The farmer replies, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." The horse returns with 3 wild horses. "How wonderful. Maybe so, maybe not." His son breaks his leg taming a horse. "How awful. Maybe so, maybe not." Then the army conscripts every able young man except his son. This is the essence of Wu Wei. Respond fully to each moment without needing to label, control, or force it. David and parenting. David used to control every part of his daughter's life, believing it was love. But as he practiced Wu Wei, he saw when to speak and when to step back, helping her develop wisdom instead of dependence. He learned true strength is knowing when to act and when to allow. The middle with a Buddha taught not indulgence, not harsh denial, but the middle way, the path between forcing life and surrendering into helplessness. It's the way of wise effort, responsive, balanced, attuned. Conclusion: living the truths. These truths aren't commandments. They are invitations, except that life includes difficulties, that resistance adds suffering. Realize you can stop creating that suffering. Walk the path of awareness, compassion, and trust. Let your action be natural. Let your heart be soft. Let your spirit return to the rhythm of life. Let water guide you. Chapter: Living the Dharma. From understanding to embodiment, one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of Buddhist teaching is non-attachment. And this misunderstanding has kept countless people from experiencing the freedom it offers. When most people hear the word non-attachment, they imagine someone who's cold, distant, emotionally shut down, someone who doesn't care about anything or anyone. But this couldn't be further from the truth of what the Buddha actually taught. Real non-attachment isn't about caring less. It's about loving more freely without the strangling grip of possession and control. Think of non-attachment like the difference between holding a bird in your hand versus holding a bird in a cage. When you hold a bird gently in your open palm, it may stay for a moment, enjoying the warmth and safety you offer, and then it flies away when it's ready. Experience the joy of connection without trying to possess or control the bird's nature. But when you put that same bird in a cage, even a golden one, you may keep its physical presence, but you've killed its spirit, its freedom, its essential birdness. The cage holder has the bird's body, but has lost the bird itself. Non-attachment is learning to love like the open hand rather than the closed cage. It's discovering that you can care deeply, love fully, and engage completely with life while holding everything lightly enough that you don't crush it with your need to control it. This isn't emotional distance, it's emotional intelligence. It's the wisdom to know that truly loving someone means wanting their happiness, even when that happiness doesn't center around you. There's a beautiful Zen story about a master who was walking with his student near a river when they came upon a young woman who was afraid to cross because the current was strong. Without hesitation, the master picked up the woman and carried her safely to the other side, then continued walking with his student. Hours later, as they approached their monastery, the student finally burst out, "Master, how could you touch that woman? Our vows forbid such contact." The master smiled gently and replied, "I put her down at the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story illustrates the essence of non-attachment. The master helped when help was needed fully and completely, then let go when the helping was done. He didn't make a story about it, didn't carry it forward into the future, didn't let it define him or create internal conflict. The student, however, was attached to his idea of how a monk should behave, and that attachment was creating suffering hours after the actual event had ended. The master was free because he could engage fully and then release completely. The student was trapped because he was carrying the weight of his judgments and expectations. In our modern world, this principle applies to every area of life, though. We rarely recognize our attachments until they start to cause pain. Consider relationships where attachment often masquerades as love, but actually creates the opposite of what we're seeking. When you're attached to someone, you need them to behave in certain ways for you to feel okay. You need them to call at specific times, express affection in particular ways, make choices that align with your preferences. This isn't love, it's dependency disguised as caring. Think about Sarah, a mother whose adult daughter moved across the country for a new job. Sarah's attachment to being needed, to being central to her daughter's life, created tremendous suffering when the daily phone calls became weekly check-ins. She found herself feeling rejected, abandoned, unimportant. Not because her daughter loved her less, but because Sarah was attached to a specific form that love had to take. The attachment was making her miss the love that was actually being offered. In New Ways postcards with thoughtful messages, care packages sent back home. Stories shared during their calls about how Sarah's parenting had prepared her daughter for independence. When Sarah learned to practice non-attachment, she didn't love her daughter less, she loved her more skillfully. Instead of needing the relationship to look a certain way, she became curious about what it could become. Instead of mourning what was ending, she started celebrating what was beginning. This shift didn't happen overnight, and it required Sarah to feel the grief of letting go of her old identity as a needed parent while discovering a new identity as a trusted ally, but the freedom that emerged was worth the temporary discomfort of the transition. non-attachment in relationships. Also means releasing the exhausting job of trying to change other people. How much energy do you spend wishing your partner was more romantic, your teenager was more communicative, your parent was more understanding, your friend was more reliable? This energy, the mental effort of constantly wanting people to be different than they are, is pure attachment, and it's creating suffering for everyone involved. Coming home to your true nature, as you rest deeper into spacious awareness, you begin to notice something remarkable happening to your relationship with wanting itself. The endless mental chatter about needing more, better, different starts to quiet down. Not because you're forcing it to stop, but because you're discovering a contentment that doesn't depend on acquiring anything new. This is the natural doorway into what Buddhism calls sacred simplicity, the elegant sufficiency that emerges when you finally stop seeking happiness in all the wrong places. The Buddha once said, "Contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty." Most of us have been trained since childhood to believe that more equals better, that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next achievement, the next experience that will finally complete us. But what if that emptiness isn't a problem to be solved through addition? What if it's actually pointing us toward a different kind of fullness altogether? Consider Lisa, a successful tech entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar company by her 40th birthday. She had everything she had dreamed of since college: the corner office, the beautiful home, the luxury car. Yet, she found herself lying awake at 3 a.m., scrolling through her phone, adding items to online shopping carts, feeling an inexplicable emptiness despite being surrounded by abundance. Lisa's transformation began during a business trip when her flight was delayed for 8 hours in a small airport with no shops, no restaurants, and poor internet. For the first time in years, she was forced to sit with nothing to buy, nothing to achieve, nothing to distract herself with except her own presence. Initially unbearable, this forced stillness gradually revealed something unexpected, what she later described as enoughness. Not the feeling of having enough things, but the recognition that she was enough, exactly as she was. The Buddha taught, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, faithfulness the best relationship. Voluntary simplicity isn't about deprivation. It's about discernment. Learning to distinguish between what truly nourishes your life and what merely distracts you from living it. This wisdom naturally arises when you spend time in spacious awareness, because from that perspective, you can see clearly what brings genuine satisfaction versus temporary stimulation. Buddhism teaches that craving is one of the root causes of suffering, but there's a difference between natural needs and compulsive wanting. Natural desires arise, get fulfilled, and naturally subside, like hunger that leads to eating and then feels satisfied. Compulsive wanting is never actually satisfied because it's not really about the object being desired. It's about trying to fill an inner sense of lack that can't be filled from the outside. Think about Robert's retired teacher, who realized he had spent 30 years collecting books he never had time to read. His house was filled with thousands of volumes, each purchased with genuine intention of expanding his knowledge. But the collection had become more about the promise of future wisdom than actual present learning. When Robert spent a month reading only books he already owned, he discovered that many were attempting to answer questions that could only be resolved through lived experience, not through accumulating more information. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, taught the Buddha. Robert gradually donated most of his collection, keeping only books that he genuinely referenced or that held special meaning. The physical space that opened up was matched by a mental spaciousness that emerged. When he stopped constantly scanning for the next book that might contain the missing piece of wisdom, he began reading more deeply, reflecting more thoroughly, actually integrating insights instead of immediately moving on to the next promising title. Let's explore a gentle practice for working with the impulse to acquire when it arises from restlessness. rather than genuine need. The next time you feel the urge to buy something, check social media or fill your time with activity. Pause for a moment before automatically following the impulse. Take 3 conscious breaths and ask yourself, what am I actually seeking right now? Often underneath the surface desire for something specific, you'll find a deeper longing for connection, peace, excitement, or meaning. Consider Alina, a single mother who felt constantly stressed about money, worried she couldn't provide enough for her daughter. She would lie awake, calculating expenses, comparing their lifestyle to other families, feeling like a failure. Elena's relationship with abundance shifted when she began practicing enough inventory, deliberately noticing moments throughout each day when she and her daughter had everything they actually needed. We have enough food, enough warmth, enough time together right now, she would mentally note during breakfast. This practice didn't change Elena's financial situation, but it transformed her relationship to their circumstances completely. She began to see their life through the lens of sufficiency rather than scarcity, allowing her to make decisions from clarity rather than panic. Her daughter sensed this shift and felt more secure, not because they had more things, but because Alina was more present and less anxious. The Buddha said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." The deepest level of voluntary simplicity involves releasing attachment to outcomes and finding contentment in the process of living itself. You can work toward goals without making your happiness dependent on achieving them. Love people without needing them to love you back in specific ways. You engage fully with life while holding everything lightly. Like playing a game where you care about playing well but aren't destroyed if you don't win. This lightness naturally emerges as you rest in spacious awareness. From that perspective, you can see that happiness isn't something you need to create or acquire. It's the natural state that emerges when you stop creating unhappiness through resistance and craving. Peace isn't something you need to find. It's what's revealed when you stop disturbing it with mental agitation. As you practice sacred simplicity, your relationship to time begins to change. When you're not constantly rushing toward the next acquisition or achievement, you can actually inhabit the present moment more fully. Time feels more spacious because you're not trying to cram it full of activities designed to make you feel productive or entertained. The Buddha taught, "Few are those among men who reach the farther shore. The rest of mankind only runs about on this side." Simplicity becomes not just a practice, but a way of seeing, a recognition that the most profound experiences are often the simplest ones, that the deepest truths are usually the most obvious ones. What you've been seeking in complexity has been quietly available in the ordinary miracle of just being here, breathing, aware, alive. The practice of sacred simplicity is ultimately about trust. Trusting that you are enough, that what you have is enough, that this moment is enough to contain whatever joy, learning, or love is available right now. This trust allows you to stop the exhausting search for completion in external things and rest in the completeness that's always been your essential nature. As the Buddha wisely said, thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. This recognition naturally prepares you for the final letting go of all, discovering that even the sense that there's someone who needs to let go of anything is itself just another thought arising in the vast space of being. From this place of profound ordinariness, we'll explore how to rest in the natural state of peace that requires nothing and excludes nothing, perfect and complete exactly as it is. Here, in this ultimate simplicity, all seeking comes to an end, not through achievement, but through the recognition that what you were seeking was never actually absent. As we near the end of this gentle journey together, there's one final recognition that brings everything into perfect simplicity. Peace isn't something you need to create, achieve, or even find. It's what you are when you stop doing anything to disturb it. Like the sky that remains clear and vast, whether clouds are present or absent, your essential nature is already and always at peace, regardless of what experiences are moving through your awareness. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." All the practices we've explored tonight, letting go of resistance, embracing impermanence, resting in spacious awareness, have been ways of removing the obstacles that were hiding the peace that was never actually absent. You weren't broken and needing to be fixed. You were whole and needing to remember right now as you rest here. Notice that there's nothing you need to do to be at peace. You don't need to let go of anything more, understand anything deeper, or become anyone different. Peace is the natural state of awareness when it's not grasping or pushing away. Like settling into warm water, you can simply sink into this natural restfulness that's always been here, waiting patiently beneath all the mental activity. Let your breath find its own rhythm. Let your thoughts come and go, like gentle waves. Let yourself be held by the vast, tender awareness that you are not the small self that worries and wants, but the open space of being itself. Here, in this ultimate simplicity, all seeking ends, not through finding something new, but through recognizing what was never lost. Rest now in your natural state of peace, knowing that this is who you've always been, coming home to your true nature. As you rest deeper into spacious awareness, you begin to notice something remarkable happening to your relationship with wanting itself. The endless mental chatter about needing more, better, different starts to quiet down. Not because you're forcing it to stop, but because you're discovering a contentment that doesn't depend on acquiring anything new. This is the natural doorway into what Buddhism calls sacred simplicity, the elegant sufficiency that emerges when you finally stop seeking happiness in all the wrong places. The Buddha once said, "Contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty." Most of us have been trained since childhood to believe that more equals better, that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next achievement, the next experience that will finally complete us. But what if that emptiness isn't a problem to be solved through addition? What if it's actually pointing us toward a different kind of fullness altogether? Consider Lisa, a successful tech entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar company by her 40th birthday. She had everything she had dreamed of since college: the corner office, the beautiful home, the luxury car. Yet, she found herself lying awake at 3 a.m., scrolling through her phone, adding items to online shopping carts, feeling an inexplicable emptiness despite being surrounded by abundance. Lisa's transformation began during a business trip when her flight was delayed for 8 hours in a small airport with no shops, no restaurants, and poor internet. For the first time in years, she was forced to sit with nothing to buy, nothing to achieve, nothing to detract herself with except her own presence. Initially unbearable, this forced stillness gradually revealed something unexpected, what she later described as enoughness. Not the feeling of having enough things, but the recognition that she was enough, exactly as she was. The Buddha taught, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, faithfulness the best relationship. Voluntary simplicity isn't about deprivation. It's about discernment. Learning to distinguish between what truly nourishes your life and what merely distracts you from living it. This wisdom naturally arises when you spend time in spacious awareness, because from that perspective, you can see clearly what brings genuine satisfaction versus temporary stimulation. Buddhism teaches that craving is one of the root causes of suffering, but there's a difference between natural needs and compulsive wanting. Natural desires arise, get fulfilled, and naturally subside, like hunger that leads to eating and then feels satisfied. Compulsive wanting is never actually satisfied because it's not really about the object being desired. It's about trying to fill an inner sense of lack that can't be filled from the outside. Think about Robert's retired teacher, who realized he had spent 30 years collecting books he never had time to read. His house was filled with thousands of volumes, each purchased with genuine intention of expanding his knowledge. But the collection had become more about the promise of future wisdom than actual present learning. When Robert spent a month reading only books he already owned, he discovered that many were attempting to answer questions that could only be resolved through lived experience, not through accumulating more information. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, taught the Buddha. Robert gradually donated most of his collection, keeping only books that he genuinely referenced or that held special meaning. The physical space that opened up was matched by a mental spaciousness that emerged. When he stopped constantly scanning for the next book that might contain the missing piece of wisdom, he began reading more deeply, reflecting more thoroughly, actually integrating insights instead of immediately moving on to the next promising title. Let's explore a gentle practice for working with the impulse to acquire when it arises from restlessness, rather than genuine need. The next time you feel the urge to buy something, check social media or fill your time with activity. Pause for a moment before automatically following the impulse. Take 3 conscious breaths and ask yourself, what am I actually seeking right now? Often underneath the surface desire for something specific, you'll find a deeper longing for connection, peace, excitement, or meaning. Consider Alina, a single mother who felt constantly stressed about money, worried she couldn't provide enough for her daughter. She would lie awake, calculating expenses, comparing their lifestyle to other families, feeling like a failure. Elena's relationship with abundance shifted when she began practicing enough inventory, deliberately noticing moments throughout each day when she and her daughter had everything they actually needed. We have enough food, enough warmth, enough time together right now, she would mentally note during breakfast. This practice didn't change Elena's financial situation, but it transformed her relationship to their circumstances completely. She began to see their life through the lens of sufficiency rather than scarcity, allowing her to make decisions from clarity rather than panic. Her daughter sensed this shift and felt more secure, not because they had more things, but because Alina was more present and less anxious. The Buddha said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." The deepest level of voluntary simplicity involves releasing attachment to outcomes and finding contentment in the process of living itself. You can work toward goals without making your happiness dependent on achieving them. Love people without needing them to love you back in specific ways. You engage fully with life while holding everything lightly. Like playing a game where you care about playing well but aren't destroyed if you don't win. This lightness naturally emerges as you rest in spacious awareness. From that perspective, you can see that happiness isn't something you need to create or acquire. It's the natural state that emerges when you stop creating unhappiness through resistance and craving. Peace isn't something you need to find. It's what's revealed when you stop disturbing it with mental agitation. As you practice sacred simplicity, your relationship to time begins to change. When you're not constantly rushing toward the next acquisition or achievement, you can actually inhabit the present moment more fully. Time feels more spacious because you're not trying to cram it full of activities designed to make you feel productive or entertained. The Buddha taught, "Few are those among men who reach the farther shore. The rest of mankind only runs about on this side." Simplicity becomes not just a practice, but a way of seeing, a recognition that the most profound experiences are often the simplest ones, that the deepest truths are usually the most obvious ones. What you've been seeking in complexity has been quietly available in the ordinary miracle of just being here, breathing, aware, alive. The practice of sacred simplicity is ultimately about trust. Trusting that you are enough, that what you have is enough, that this moment is enough to contain whatever joy, learning, or love is available right now. This trust allows you to stop the exhausting search for completion in external things and rest in the completeness that's always been your essential nature. As the Buddha wisely said, thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. This recognition naturally prepares you for the final letting go of all, discovering that even the sense that there's someone who needs to let go of anything is itself just another thought arising in the vast space of being. From this place of profound ordinariness, we'll explore how to rest in the natural state of peace that requires nothing and excludes nothing, perfect and complete exactly as it is. Here, in this ultimate simplicity, all seeking comes to an end, not through achievement, but through the recognition that what you were seeking was never actually absent. As we near the end of this gentle journey together, there's one final recognition that brings everything into perfect simplicity. Peace isn't something you need to create, achieve, or even find. It's what you are when you stop doing anything to disturb it. Like the sky that remains clear and vast, whether clouds are present or absent, your essential nature is already and always at peace, regardless of what experiences are moving through your awareness. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." All the practices we've explored tonight, letting go of resistance, embracing impermanence, resting in spacious awareness, have been ways of removing the obstacles that were hiding the peace that was never actually absent. You weren't broken and needing to be fixed. You were whole and needing to remember right now as you rest here. Notice that there's nothing you need to do to be at peace. You don't need to let go of anything more, understand anything deeper, or become anyone different. Peace is the natural state of awareness when it's not grasping or pushing away. Like settling into warm water, you can simply sink into this natural restfulness that's always been here, waiting patiently beneath all the mental activity. Let your breath find its own rhythm. Let your thoughts come and go like gentle waves. Let yourself be held by the vast, tender awareness that you are not the small self that worries and wants, but the open space of being itself. Here, in this ultimate simplicity, all seeking ends, not through finding something new, but through recognizing what was never lost. Rest now in your natural state of peace, knowing that this is who you've always been. Chapter 2. The Second Arrow, the Mind's Reaction in the Ancient Forests of India. The Buddha once sat beneath a tree with his disciples, and he offered them a teaching so simple, so clear, that it has echoed through time like a bell through still air. He said, "When someone is struck by an arrow, is it painful?" The monks answered, "Yes, Lord, it is." Now, he continued, "If that same person is struck by a second arrow shot into the very same wound, would it not hurt even more?" The monks nodded, "Yes, Lord, it would be far worse." The Buddha looked into their eyes and said, "In life, we cannot always avoid the first arrow. Illness, loss, change, disappointment. These things come, but the second arrow is our reaction, our resistance, our mental story, and that is optional." Pause for a moment. Let these words settle. The second arrow is optional. How often do we shoot ourselves with this second arrow? You feel sadness, and the mind says, "I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me?" That's the second arrow. You feel fear, and the mind says, "I can't handle this. It will never get better." That's the second arrow. You lose something, and the mind says, "This shouldn't have happened. Life is unfair." That too is the second arrow. We think we're helping ourselves by analyzing, blaming, predicting, controlling. But in truth, we are only deepening the wound. A story of rain. Imagine this. You're walking home, and it begins to rain. This is the first arrow, the discomfort, the cold drops on your skin. But then your mind begins, "This always happens to me. I knew I should have checked the weather. Why does my life feel like one long mistake?" Now, you're not just wet, you're angry, frustrated, embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. The rain is no longer the problem. Your story about the rain is the second arrow has struck. The wise path is not to pretend the rain isn't there, nor to argue that it should be dry. The wise path is to feel the rain, just the rain, to say, this is wet, this is cold, this is what is happening, and then let that be enough. Mindfulness as a shield. So, how do we stop the second arrow? Not through force, not by pushing thoughts away, but by noticing mindfulness is the gentle warrior who sees the second arrow before it strikes. When pain arises, pause, ask, is this the first arrow, the natural pain of life? Or is this the second? My mind's resistance to what is this? Moment of recognition is powerful. It interrupts the pattern. It softens the reactivity. It opens the door to healing. The story of Myra. Let me tell you about Mira. Mira lost her job during a time of great economic stress. The first arrow was real. The fear, the uncertainty, the grief. But what truly tormented her came afterward. Her mind whispered, "You're worthless now. Everyone else is succeeding. You're falling behind. You should have worked harder. You've failed." Each thought, a second arrow. Each judgment, a deepening wound. Then one day, in a moment of stillness, Mira remembered a phrase she had once heard from a Zen teacher. Don't believe everything you think. She began to watch her thoughts the way you watch clouds move. Across a vast sky, drifting, changing, dissolving. She stopped grabbing onto them. She stopped fighting them. She let the first arrow be there. Yes, she felt the fear, the sadness, but she stopped adding the second dot in that space. A new voice emerged, a quieter one. You're still here. You're still breathing. That is enough for now. This voice didn't come from the mind. It came from awareness, the deep presence that watches without judgment. And that was the beginning of her healing. Meditation. Recognizing the arrows. Let's pause together now. Take a slow breath in and breathe out gently. Bring to mind a recent moment of pain, something small, something manageable. Now ask yourself, what was the first arrow? What actually happened? And now, what was the second? What story did your mind begin to tell? Just notice. Don't argue with the thoughts. Don't push them away. Just say softly in your heart, I see you, second arrow, but I don't need you right now. Let that be enough. Closing reflection. The second arrow is the habit of turning pain into suffering. But the mind can be retrained gently, kindly, through awareness every time you pause and see your story. Clearly, without feeding it to, pull out the second arrow and lay it down. You reclaim your peace. You come back to what is real. Just this moment, just this breath, just this life. As the Buddha once said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Tonight, let go of the second arrow. Let the pain rise and fall like a wave. Let your mind become clear like a mountain stream. Let your breath remind you, right now, you are safe. Right now, you are here. Right now, that is enough. Chapter 3. Impermanence. Everything passes in the heart of the Buddhist teaching. One truth flows like a quiet river beneath all others. Anicca. Impermanence, the recognition that everything changes, that nothing, no joy, no pain, no thought, no breath lasts forever. This truth is not a punishment. It is not a loss. It is freedom. The suffering comes not from change itself, but from resisting change, from clinging to what cannot stay, and from pushing away what is already leaving. The parable of the golden cup there is a well-known Zen story of a monk who is given a delicate handcrafted cup, golden and radiant, a treasure among treasures. Each morning, the monk would sip tea from the cup with deep appreciation, and each morning, before lifting it to his lips, he would silently remind himself, this cup is already broken, not out of pessimism, not because he wanted it to break, but because he knew that all things, no matter how beautiful, are temporary visitors. One day, of course, the cup did fall and shatter, but the monk smiled, not out of denial, not because it didn't hurt, but because his heart was ready. He had loved the cup fully, and he had let it go freely. The falling leaf, imagine a single leaf on a quiet autumn afternoon. It has spent the summer shimmering in green, dancing in wind, catching rain, basking in sun. Now it turns golden dot, and soon it lets go falling, not in fear, but in grace, not with resistance, but with surrender. It does not cling to the branch, screaming for endless summer. It knows all things change, and in that knowing it falls. Beautifully so too must we learn to let go, not because we do not love, but because we do. Our lives are like seasons. Just as the leaf does not hold on to summer, we must not hold on to yesterday. The faces of loved ones age. The laughter of children grows quiet as they become adults. Careers rise and fall. Dreams shift and new ones arrive. Everything arises. Everything passes. To live in peace is not to make things stay. It is to walk with them as long as they are here and bow when they leave. A story from the monastery. There was once a student in a Zen monastery who asked his master, "Why do I suffer so much?" The master replied, "Because you believe that things should last." The student was confused. "But I love deeply. How can I not suffer when what I love fades?" The master pointed to a droplet of rain rolling down a leaf. "Do you see that drop?" "Yes," said the student. "Can you stop it from falling?" "No," the student whispered. The master said, "Then learn to love it while it falls." Breath practice. Inhale, exhale. Let go right now. Pause. Feel the breath entering your body. Now feel it leave. Nothing to hold, nothing to keep. Your very breath teaches you impermanent every moment. Inhale, arising. Exhale, passing, birth, death. Over and over again. In every breath, you are letting go. And in that letting go, you are alive. The grief of change and the gift within. Sometimes impermanence arrives not as a breeze, but as a storm. A breakup, a diagnosis, a death, a change you did not ask. For it can tear through your life like lightning, leaving behind grief, confusion, and silence. But even this is not the enemy. Grief is the proof of love, and loss is the teacher of depth. Impermanence makes each moment sacred. Each smile becomes a miracle. Each hug, a gift. Each ordinary day, extraordinary. The story of a candle. The Buddha once pointed to a candle flickering in the wind. He said, "This body, like this flame, it burns for a while. It gives light, and then it goes out. But the warmth it gave, the light it shared, that lives on." We too are like candles. We do not last forever, but we can shine fully while we are here. And when our time to fade comes, we go not in fear, but with the grace of a life well lived, like water over stone to practice. The Dharma is not to make life stay still. It is to become like water, soft but strong, able to flow with all things, to shape the world without resistance. The river does not curse the mountain. It curves around it. The sky does not argue with the clouds. It holds them. The awakened heart does not demand that life go its way. It bows and whispers this too. Guided reflection. What are you holding too tightly? Take a deep breath. Now bring to mind something you're afraid to lose. A relationship, a role, a version of yourself, a plan. Feel where you're gripping. Feel the tension in the body. Now ask gently, can I love this fully and still let it go when the time comes? This is the art of impermanence. Not to detach, but to love with open hands, to say, I treasure you while you're here, and I honor your going when you leave. This is not weakness. This is the strength of the awakened heart. The universe of change. Everything that begins will end. Stars are born, stars collapse, mountains rise. mountains erode. We are not separate from this rhythm. We are part of it. To fight impermanence is to fight the entire universe. To flow with it is to become free. Closing meditation. Let it all pass as you lie here tonight in stillness. Let the river of life flow through you. Let thoughts come and go. Let emotions rise and fall. Let identities appear and dissolve. There is nothing to hold, nothing to keep, nothing to fear. Everything passes, and what remains is peace. The peace that does not depend on circumstance. The peace that lives beneath change. The peace that is your true nature. Final words. The Buddha said, "All compounded things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence, not to stop the change, but to awaken within it, to live with clarity, to love with presence, to bow to each moment as it comes and as it goes. Because in the letting go, you find what can never be lost: awareness, wisdom, peace, and love. Everything passes, and that, dear one, is the beginning of your freedom." Anxiety is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It arrives when the mind spins forward into futures we cannot control, rehearsing disasters, clinging to outcomes, imagining pain before it ever arrives. It shows up in the body as tightness, in the chest as pressure, in the stomach as unease, in the heart as restlessness. Anxiety whispers, "What if? What if I fail? What if I lose what I love? What if I can't handle what's coming?" These questions spiral into thoughts that seem endless, and the more we resist anxiety, trying to suppress it, deny it, or outrun it, the more it grows. But what if the answer to anxiety isn't to fight it at all? What if the path forward is to stop running, turn toward it, and meet it with presence? This is the essence of mindfulness, a return to the here and now, because the present moment is the only place where fear begins to lose its power. The nature of anxiety. The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from craving, aversion, and delusion, the mind's constant grasping at control, its resistance to discomfort, and its misperception of the self as separate and under threat. Anxiety often includes all three. It craves certainty, control, safety. It resists uncertainty, discomfort, vulnerability, and it sees the self as fragile and alone in a dangerous world. Mindfulness doesn't deny anxiety. It brings awareness to it gently and consistently. It asks, "What is this feeling made of?" And then it listens, turning toward the storm. Imagine standing on a cliffside as dark clouds gather. The wind begins to howl. Rain lashes against your skin. Every part of you wants to flee. But instead of running, you sit down. You feel the rain. You let the wind blow through you. You watch the clouds shift and move. Eventually, the storm passes, not because you fought it, but because all storms pass. This is mindfulness. Not escape, but intimate contact. Not resistance, but curiosity. When you turn toward anxiety with presence, you discover something radical. You can feel it without being destroyed by it. You can observe it without becoming it. The storm moves, but the sky remains. You are the sky. The power of naming. One of the first practices in meeting anxiety with mindfulness is simply to name what is arising. This is fear, this is worry, this is tension. You are not saying, "I am afraid," but fear is here. This subtle shift in language changes everything, because it helps you create space between you and the emotion. You move from identification to observation, from being caught in the wave to watching it rise and fall. The Buddha called this remembering, the art of remembering to come back to the present moment, to say, "This is anxiety is not weakness, it is profound strength. It is the beginning of freedom." Breathing with the body. Anxiety lives in the future. Mindfulness lives in the now. And one of the most powerful ways to anchor yourself in now is through the breath. Right now, take a breath. Feel the air enter your nose. Feel your belly rise. Feel your shoulders soften. Now breathe out. Feel the release. Feel the letting go. Feel the ground beneath you. The breath is always here. It never abandons you. It requires no effort to find, and it is the perfect teacher in presence. When you return to the breath, you return to life. Making space for the feeling anxiety is tightness. Mindfulness is space. When anxiety arises, the instinct is to push it away. But mindfulness teaches you to welcome it like a guest. You don't have to like the guest. You just have to acknowledge its presence. Instead of clenching against the feeling, you make room for it. You say, yes, fear is here. You can stay for a while. Then you notice where. Does it live in the body? Is it hot or cold? Is it moving or still? Is it sharp or dull? You bring loving attention to these sensations without needing them to change. Paradoxically, this attention often softens them, not because you forced them to go, but because you stopped fueling them with resistance. The practice of grounding. The mind races forward into imagined disasters. The body remains here. Use the body as your anchor. Place your hand on your heart. Feel its rhythm. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Notice there, aliveness. Stand up and feel your feet pressing into the floor. Ground yourself in the senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What can you touch? Anxiety pulls you into what if. Mindfulness brings you back to what is working. With the inner critic often, anxiety is not just about the fear itself, but the judgment that follows. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just relax? Everyone else seems fine. This is the second arrow the Buddha spoke of, the mental reaction to the initial pain. The first arrow is anxiety itself. The second arrow is the shame, judgment, or self-blame about feeling anxious. Mindfulness sees both. It acknowledges the anxiety and the judgment. Then it offers compassion to both. Try placing your hand on your heart and whispering to yourself, it's okay to feel this. I'm still here. I'm doing the best I can. This is not indulgence. It is healing. Riding the wave, every emotion has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Anxiety, too, has a wave-like nature. It builds, it peaks, it passes. If you can stay with it through the wave without getting pulled under, it will crest and fall. To ride it with breath and presence. To say, this is just a moment in time. This too will pass. Mindfulness teaches you not to fight the wave, but to trust your ability to float. The pause that heals anxious moments often feel urgent. They compel us to act quickly, to fix, solve, escape. But mindfulness invites a pause. Before reacting, you stop. You take a breath. You ask, what is actually needed right now? Sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes it's a glass of water. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's simply to notice the anxiety without responding at all. This sacred pause is the doorway to wisdom. It interrupts the automatic and opens the possibility of choice. Letting go of the story, much of anxiety lives in the story the mind creates. I'll never be okay. This will ruin everything. I can't handle this. But stories are not facts. They are interpretations colored by fear. Mindfulness invites you to come back to what's real, not the story, the sensation, the breath, the body, not the imagined future, the present moment. Let the stories go like clouds floating across the sky. Notice them, name them, and then return to now. Loving awareness. Mindfulness is not cold observation. It is warm, loving presence. It says, you don't have to fix yourself. You only have to be with yourself. When anxiety arises, you become your own companion, not a critic, not a judge, but a friend. You sit beside the anxiety, you hold its hand. You say, you're not alone. And in that space of kindness, healing begins. Daily mindfulness practices for anxiety. Here are a few simple ways to bring mindfulness into your daily life. Mindful morning before reaching for your phone. Take 3 slow breaths. Notice your body. Set a gentle intention for the day. 1-minute breath. Anytime you feel overwhelmed, pause. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. Repeat. Mindful walking. During walks, feel your feet touch the ground. Hear the sounds around you. Smell the air. Evening reflection. Before sleep, ask, what moments of peace did I experience today? What am I grateful for? These simple acts retrain the nervous system to rest in presence. The anxiety is not you are, not your anxiety. You are the awareness that sees it. You are the loving presence that holds it. Anxiety may visit, but it does not define you. You are deeper than any passing emotion. You are more spacious than any story. You are the sky. Anxiety is the cloud. Breathe. Be here. You are already whole. You are already home. And from this place of presence, you can meet each moment as it comes without fear, without grasping. Just this breath, just this now, just this life. Unfolding.mindfulness is your path. Presence is your power. And peace is already here, waiting in the stillness beneath it all. In the teachings of Buddhism, there is a quiet but radical truth that many overlook. Before we can truly love others, before we can extend boundless compassion to the world, we must learn how to offer it to ourselves. This is not an act of selfishness or indulgence, but one of deep honesty and humility. True compassion begins at home, not within the walls of our house, but within the sacred space of our own heart. Yet self-compassion is often the most difficult kind. Why? Because we are so familiar with our flaws. We know intimately our fears, our failures, our unkind thoughts, our self-sabotage, our insecurities. The voice within is often not one of kindness, but of judgment, comparison, and blame. We treat ourselves with a harshness we would never dare inflict on a friend, a child, or even a stranger. And so we suffer, caught in a cycle of self-judgment. And shame. Buddhism invites us into a different way. The Buddha did not teach self-rejection. He taught liberation. He taught that all beings, without exception, are worthy of compassion, and that includes ourselves. In fact, in the Metta Sutta, the Buddha begins the practice of loving kindness with this powerful phrase: just as a mother protects her only child with her life, even so should one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. And who is the very first being we must include in this boundless heart? Ourselves. The inner critic and the wounded self. Most of us live with a harsh inner critic. It is the voice that says, "You're not good enough. You always mess things up. You should be better by now." This voice often has deep roots. It may come from childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, traumatic events, or internalized expectations. But regardless of its origin, its effect is the same. It creates separation within the self. Instead of being a whole, integrated being, we fracture ourselves. One part of us becomes the attacker, the other part the attacked. We live in a constant civil war within our minds, which drains our energy, clouds our vision, and diminishes our capacity for joy. Self-compassion is not about silencing the inner critic by force. It is about meeting it with presence and understanding. It is recognizing that this harsh voice is itself a form of suffering. It is a wounded attempt to protect us, to keep us safe from failure, rejection, or disappointment. But its strategy is flawed. We don't grow from criticism. We grow from love. Imagine a child learning to walk. They stumble, fall, cry, get up again. Would we scold the child for falling? Of course not. We would encourage them, hold their hands, celebrate their courage. Why then do we not offer this same gentle encouragement to ourselves as we stumble through the complexities of life? The practice of self-compassion in Buddhism is not a vague sentiment. It is a discipline, a practice, a skill that can be cultivated. It begins with mindfulness, the capacity to see our inner life clearly without judgment. When we notice that we are suffering, the first step is to acknowledge it. This is a moment of pain. This is a moment of difficulty. The second step is to remember our shared humanity. Pain is not a personal failure. It is a universal experience. Everyone suffers. Everyone struggles. Everyone has moments of self-doubt and grief and fear. We are not alone. The third step is to respond with kindness. This is the heart of self-compassion. You speak to yourself as you would speak to a dear friend. You place your hand on your heart. You breathe gently. You say, "May I be kind to myself. In this moment, may I be patient. May I be gentle. May I give myself the care I need." This simple practice, repeated daily, begins to rewire the nervous system. It begins to dissolve the habit of self-attack and replace it with the habit of tenderness. It is not magic, and it does not erase pain, but it does transform the landscape of your inner world. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It is important to distinguish self-compassion from self-pity. Self-pity says, "Why me?" and isolates us from others. It narrows our perspective and keeps us stuck in the story of our suffering. Self-compassion says, "This is hard, and I am not alone in this." It opens us to connection, to empathy, and to wise action. Kristin Neff, a pioneer in self-compassion research, identifies 3 components of this practice: mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. These mirror the teachings of Buddhism. In profound ways, mindfulness is sati. Common humanity is the insight into unnata non-self and interbeing. Self-kindness is meta-loving kindness toward ourselves. When we practice these together, we become more resilient, more open-hearted, more alive. We become able to face the difficult truths of our lives without collapsing into despair. We become able to forgive ourselves for not being perfect. Forgiveness, as self-compassion own, of the most radical forms of self-compassion, is self-forgiveness. Many of us carry old guilt, old shame, old regret, like heavy stones in our hearts. We replay past mistakes. We judge ourselves for what we should have done, could have done, might have done. We punish ourselves endlessly. But the Buddha taught that clinging to the past is a form of suffering. It is like drinking poison and expecting it to heal us. The path of liberation means learning to let go, not by pretending we didn't make mistakes, but by seeing those mistakes with wisdom. Forgiveness is not approval. It is understanding. It is the recognition that we were doing the best we could at the time with the awareness we had. As we grow, we see more clearly, and from this clarity, we can make amends, change our behavior, and live differently. But to do that, we must first forgive ourselves. We must release the inner judge. We must open to the truth that we, too, are human beings worthy of compassion. The body remembers sometimes the wounds we carry are not just mental or emotional, they are somatic. The body holds tension, trauma, and old pain. Acts of self-compassion must include the body. This means giving ourselves rest, nourishment, touch, and care. It means listening to the body's signals rather than overriding them with busyness or denial. Simple practices like mindful breathing, gentle stretching, walking meditation, or placing a warm hand on the heart can send powerful signals of safety. To the nervous system, over time, the body begins to trust again. It begins to soften self-compassion and the spiritual path. Some practitioners worry that self-compassion will make them complacent. They believe that harshness is necessary for growth, that without a strict inner critic, they will become lazy or self-indulgent. But this is a misunderstanding. The deepest growth comes not from punishment, but from love. When we feel safe, we are more willing to take risks, to be honest with ourselves, to admit our limitations, and to learn from them. Self-compassion is the soil in which awakening flowers. Even the Buddha practiced compassion for himself. After years of extreme asceticism, he realized that harming his body was not the path to enlightenment. He bathed, he ate, he rested beneath the Bodhi tree. And it was in that moment of balance, of kindness, of presence, that he awakened self-compassion. Is not a detour from the path. It is the path, a practice. The compassionate letter. Take a few moments in stillness. Let your breath settle. Place a hand on your heart. Now imagine that you are writing a letter to yourself from the perspective of a wise, loving friend. Someone who sees your goodness, your effort, your struggle. What would they say? They might say, "Dear one, I see how hard you are trying. I know how much you care. I know the pain you carry and the courage it takes to face each day. I want you to know that you are enough. You are worthy of love. You don't need to prove anything. You are already whole." Let the words come. Let them be gentle. Let them surprise you. When you're finished, fold the letter. Keep it somewhere close. And when the inner critic rises again, return to this letter. Read it slowly. Let it enter the places in you that are still afraid. Closing reflections. Compassion for the self is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of everything else. When you learn to meet your own pain with tenderness, you become less reactive, less defensive, less hard on others. You begin to understand the secret pain that everyone carries. You move through the world with more grace. And most of all, you begin to feel at home within yourself. Not because you've become perfect, but because you have become real. The Buddha said, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and compassion than you are. And that person is not to be found." Return to this truth again and again. Not just in words, but in practice. With each breath, each kind thought, each act of gentle attention, you reclaim your place in your own heart. This is not sentimentality. This is the beginning of freedom. This is compassion. This is the path. This is home. Returning to the breath and the teachings of the Buddha, there is a doorway that is always open, a refuge that is always available, a sanctuary that exists not in some distant temple or faraway land, but within you, right now, in this very moment. That doorway is the breath. Returning to the breath is not just a practice. It is a way of returning to yourself, to your body, your presence, your truth, and your peace. It is a homecoming to what is real beneath the endless swirl of thoughts, emotions, and external noise. When the Buddha first taught meditation over 2,500 years ago, he began with something deceptively simple: mindfulness of breathing. In the Pali Canon, in the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha says, mindful, he breathes in. Mindful, he breathes out. But what does it mean to breathe mindfully? Why is it so important that this simple act became the very foundation of mindfulness, practiced across centuries and cultures? Because the breath is always with us. From the moment of birth to the moment of death, the breath carries us through every experience. And yet, most of the time, we are not aware of it. We are lost in the past or chasing the future, caught in the narratives and fears of the mind. The breath calls us back. The breath, as a bridged breath, is a bridge between the body and the mind. It links the seen and the unseen, the conscious and the unconscious. It is one of the few bodily functions that is both voluntary and involuntary. We can choose to direct it or simply allow it. When you return to the breath, you are returning to the present moment. You are no longer pulled by what has already happened or what might happen next. You are anchored, grounded, awake. The Buddha taught that through mindfulness of breathing, we begin to calm the body, calm the mind, and eventually see things as they truly are. This is not poetic metaphor. It is a deep truth, verified again and again by practitioners across the centuries. Let us begin by reflecting on the simplest of acts. A single breath. Breathe in and be aware that you are breathing in. Breathe out and be aware that you are breathing out. Nothing more is needed. This alone can change the entire fabric of your moment. When anxiety arises, one of the most powerful gifts of the breath is its ability to hold us. When anxiety threatens to overwhelm, anxiety is, in many ways, a flight from the present. The mind spins stories, fears, projections. The body contracts, the breath becomes shallow or erratic, but the breath can be your companion even in the midst of panic. When anxiety rises, rather than trying to fight it, you can return to your breath. Not to get rid of the anxiety, but to create space around it, to allow it to be there without drowning in it. There is an old Zen saying, "Let your thoughts come and go, just don't serve them tea." When anxious thoughts appear, you don't have to entertain them. You don't have to analyze, fix, or reject them. You can return to the breath. And in doing so, you reconnect to something more stable than thought. Awareness, a practice for difficult moments. May me guide you through a simple practice. Begin by sitting comfortably. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Let your hands rest gently in your lap. Now, take a slow breath in. Feel the air as it enters your nostrils, fills your chest, expands your belly. Exhale slowly. Notice the sensation of release. Repeat this a few times, no need to change anything, just observe. Now bring your attention to the breath as it is, not as you want it to be. It may be shallow or deep, smooth or rough. It is okay, say silently. With each inhale, breathing in, I calm my body. And with each exhale, breathing out, I calm my mind. Do this for a few breaths. Now add this. Breathing in, I smile to my body. Breathing out, I release tension. Notice how gradually your body softens, your thoughts slow. A gentle spaciousness begins to appear. This is the power of the breath. And impermanence. Each breath is a teacher of immanence. No breath can be held forever. Each inhale must become an exhale. Each exhale makes room for the next inhale. This rhythm of arising and passing away mirrors the rhythm of life itself. When we cling to pleasure or resist pain, we are trying to hold our breath. But when we allow life to flow, breath by breath, we discover that impermanence is not a threat. It is a liberation. You cannot breathe for yesterday. You cannot breathe for tomorrow. You can only breathe this breath. Right now, this moment is your home. Returning again and again, you will forget. That is part of the practice. You will get lost in thought. You will react. You will become anxious again. And each time, you will have the opportunity to return. Returning to the breath is not a failure to stay. It is the essence of the path. In the Zen tradition, they say, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. So each time you find yourself caught in thought, lost in fear, distracted by noise, smile gently to yourself and return to this inhale, to this exhale. That is enough. Stories from the Sangale Mi share the story of a young woman named Nila. Had grown up in a chaotic household. Her nervous system had learned to expect stress. As an adult, she found herself constantly on edge, even during quiet moments. During a silent meditation retreat, Nila was taught to rest her attention on the breath. At first, she felt overwhelmed. Her mind wouldn't stop. Her heart raced, but the teacher gently reminded her, don't try to control anything, just return. Over the days, something began to shift. Nila noticed that when she simply breathed without expectation, a kind of peace began to emerge. It was fragile at first, but it grew, not because her anxiety disappeared, but because she had found an anchor deeper than her fear. Today, Nila still practices daily. My breath is my friend, she says. It reminds me that I don't have to figure everything out. I can just be here. Breath as a teacher in many ways. The breath is our first teacher. Long before we could speak or understand language, we breathed. We were held as infants, comforted by the rise and fall of another's chest. We were being taught safety through breath. Now, as adults, the breath continues to teach. It shows us that presence is always available, that peace is closer than we think, that we are not separate from life, but part of its ongoing rhythm. Even the Buddha, upon his awakening, is said to have continued practicing mindfulness of breathing, not because he needed it, but because it is such a profound gateway to truth. returning without judgment. Perhaps the most important aspect of returning to the breath is to do so without judgment. You will notice that the mind wanders, that emotions arise, that the breath sometimes feels tight or blocked or difficult to stay with. Let all of that be okay. Each return is an act of compassion. Each return is a step on the path. Each return is a remembrance. You are here, breathing. You are alive, and that is enough. A living practice. Mindfulness of breathing is not limited to the meditation cushion. You can return to the breath anywhere, while walking, while waiting in line, while washing dishes, while lying in bed, while facing uncertainty. Breath is an invitation to begin again. Each breath is a reminder that this moment matters. You don't need to change your life to practice. You need only to remember that your life is already happening, and your breath is your doorway back to it. Closing reflection. As we close this chapter, let us return to the breath one more time. Breathe in, aware that you are alive. Breathe out, releasing whatever you no longer need. Breathe in, feeling your body. Breathe out, softening your heart. Breathe in, opening to this moment. Breathe out, trusting that it is enough. The breath is your friend. The breath is your path. The breath is your home. Return here as often as you need. Return here when you are lost. Return here when you are whole. This is the great truth hidden in plain sight. You were never far away. Just one breath from home. Acceptance, the end of Inner Warren, the silence of the monastery garden. The master smiled and said, "You stop fighting?" This is the essence of acceptance. The moment you stop waging war against your experience, your emotions, your past, your imperfections, your fears, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of resistance. Acceptance is not passivity. It is not giving up. It is not resignation or apathy. Acceptance is the deep inner recognition that what is. This principle is called radical acceptance, a phrase popularized in the West by teacher and psychologist Tara Brach. Radical acceptance means fully allowing ourselves to be as we are, others to be as they are, and life to unfold as it does, not because we don't care, but because we care deeply enough to meet reality with open eyes and an open heart. Think of the mind as a battlefield. There is a part of us constantly trying to fix, improve, control, or run away from what is happening inside. Anxiety shows up, and we try to push it down. Sadness appears, and we distract ourselves. Anger flares, and we judge ourselves for feeling it. All of this is inner resistance, a subtle form of violence against our own experience. But what if we stopped fighting? Imagine waking up in the morning, and instead of bracing against the day, you simply say to yourself, "Whatever comes today, I will meet it with compassion." Imagine noticing fear, and instead of tightening around it, you whisper, "Fear is here. Let me breathe with it." This is what acceptance looks like in practice. The war within. Many of us are caught in a constant internal battle. We fight with our bodies, wishing they looked or felt different. We fight with our minds, frustrated by our own thoughts or forgetfulness. We fight with our past, carrying shame or regret. We fight with our present, always wishing it were better, faster, more successful, more peaceful, more something. This constant conflict drains our energy and clouds our clarity. We think that if we just resist hard enough, we can force things to change. But the paradox is that real change only happens when we first stop resisting. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from pain itself, but from our resistance to pain. This is often illustrated through the teaching of the two arrows. The first arrow is the pain itself, physical injury, a loss, a moment of sadness. The second arrow is the mental suffering we create in response. This shouldn't be happening. Why me? What's wrong with me? The first arrow is unavoidable. The second arrow is optional. Acceptance removes the second arrow. It doesn't stop pain, but it stops the war we create around the pain. Stories of acceptance. Consider the story of Maya. For years, she fought her condition, denying it, pushing through. Exhaustion, pretending she was fine, but the harder she fought, the worse she felt. Eventually, she began a meditation practice and slowly learned to listen to her body. She began to accept her limits without shame. She learned to rest without guilt. She stopped resisting her condition and started responding to it with care. This shift didn't cure her illness, but it changed her life. Maya said, "For the first time, I don't feel like my body is the enemy. I don't hate my tiredness. I meet it. I breathe with it. And somehow that makes all the difference." Or consider Dajin, a Zen monk who spoke about his struggle with anger. As a young man, he tried to conquer his anger through discipline, harsh self-talk, and long hours of meditation. It wasn't until he began to bow to his anger, literally placing his head to the ground each time it arose, that he began to understand it. He shared, "I thought I had to defeat my anger, but it turned out I just needed to listen to it, to bow to it, to let it teach me where I was hurting. That was the moment I stopped being at war with myself." What acceptance is not saying that everything is okay. If you're in a toxic relationship, acceptance doesn't mean you stay silent. Acceptance means you start with the truth. This is what's happening, right? Now, from there you can respond wisely. Acceptance is not indifference. It doesn't mean you stop trying to improve your life or help others. In fact, acceptance often gives us the clarity and energy we need to take effective action. It's not about being totally calm or enlightened. It's about bringing awareness and kindness to the present moment, whatever it contains. The practice of acceptance. So, how do we begin to practice acceptance? Pause and breathe when you feel discomfort. Pause. Take a breath. Instead of reacting, just notice, what am I feeling right now? Where is it in my body? Can I be with it for just a few breaths? Label with kindness. Use gentle mental labeling. Not, "I'm so anxious," but "anxiety is here." You are the space in which the emotion arises. Soften the body. Tension is a sign of resistance. When you notice tightness in your shoulders, jaw, or belly, breathe into that area. Imagine softening around the discomfort. Let your body know it's safe to feel. Speak gently to yourself. What would it sound like to meet your experience with compassion? You might say, "It's okay to feel this. I'm doing the best I can. This too belongs." It means you trust that meeting it with awareness is more skillful than fighting it. Acceptance as liberation. One of the most beautiful teachings of we suffer not because of what is happening, but because we believe it shouldn't be happening. We no longer need to manipulate our experience to feel okay. We stop trying to edit our feelings, our past, our personality. We learn to sit down in the middle of our life and say, "Yes, this too." There is a Zen saying, when the mind is at peace, the world too is at peace. Acceptance brings that peace, not by changing the world, but by transforming the way we meet the world. A guided reflection. Let's close this chapter with a gentle reflection. Find a comfortable seat. Let your eyes soften or close. Take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Now bring to mind something you've been struggling with. It could be an emotion, a habit, a situation that feels stuck. Gently say to yourself, "This too belongs." Notice the feelings that arise. Maybe there's resistance. Maybe there's tenderness. Whatever you feel, allow it. Say again, "This too belongs." Notice what happens when you stop trying to push the experience away. Now, place a hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your own presence and say to yourself, "I am willing to meet this moment with kindness." Breathe here for a few more moments as we end this practice. Take one final breath and return to the room slowly. Is not the end of striving, but the beginning of wise action. When we accept what is, we are finally free to respond instead of react. We are no longer at war with ourselves, and in that peace, true healing begins. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You only have to begin, right here, with this breath, this feeling, this moment. In that simple act of acceptance, the war ends, and peace quietly begins. The stillness beneath the noise there is Aquinas at the center of all things. Beneath the chaos of thought, beneath the clamor of expectation, beneath the noise of the world and the endless whirl of our inner commentary, there is something still vast and untouched. It is a truth that every one of us can experience directly. And it is here, in this stillness beneath the noise, that the deepest healing begins. The Buddha did not teach us to avoid life, but to meet it fully without being consumed by it. He offered a path that allows us to walk through fire without being burned, to sit in the center of the storm without being torn apart. The stillness he pointed to is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of unwavering awareness within. Difficulty, most of us live with a kind of background hum, constant mental noise made up of planning, regretting, analyzing, comparing, and craving. It's the voice in the head that never seems to rest, always commenting, always judging, always reaching. Even when we try to relax, the hum is still there. Even when we sleep, it colors our dreams. And this noise, over time, becomes a kind of prison. We start to mistake the voice for who we are. But mindfulness practice reveals a different truth. You are not the noise. You are the awareness that hears it. You are not the fear. You are the space in which fear arises and passes. You are not the story. You are the still presence in which the story is told. This distinction is subtle but profound. When we believe we are our thoughts, we get entangled in them. We try to fix them, suppress them, or argue with them. But when we recognize that thoughts are just passing events in awareness like clouds in the sky, we stop needing to control them. We can allow them to come and go without resistance, without identification. Consider Ravi, a man in his 50s, who came to meditation after suffering decades of low-grade anxiety. On the outside, his life seemed successful. A steady job, a family, a decent home. But inside, Ravi felt like he was always on the edge of something terrible. His mind was a constant flood of what-ifs. What if I lose my job? What if my kids get hurt? What if I get sick? At first, mindfulness seemed pointless to him. How can sitting and watching my breath help with all these real problems? He asked. But he stayed with the practice. And one day, something shifted. He was sitting in meditation, lost in thought as usual, when he suddenly became aware of the thinking itself. It was like watching a movie, he said, rather than being trapped inside it. For the first time, Ravi recalled, I realized that my thoughts were just thoughts. They weren't facts. They weren't predictions. They were just the mind doing what minds do. And in that moment, everything got quiet. Not because the thoughts stopped, but because I stopped believing them. That was his first taste of the stillness beneath the noise. And from that moment on, something fundamental changed in him. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but he stopped feeding it. He stopped fighting it. He began to relate to it with curiosity and compassion rather than fear. This is the essence of spiritual practice, not to escape the world, but to see the world with different eyes. To live in the same world, but with a different relationship to it. The first step is to slow down enough to notice the noise. You can't go beneath the noise if you don't first acknowledge it. Close your eyes, feel your body, notice the breath, and listen. What is the mind saying right now? At first, this can feel overwhelming. The mind is busy. It leaps from topic to topic like a monkey swinging through trees. But with practice, we learn to sit with this movement without getting pulled in. We watch, we breathe, we wait. Eventually, something shifts. The thoughts are still there, but we're not inside them anymore. We're observing from a distance. And in that space between you and your thoughts, stillness appears. This stillness is not created, it is uncovered. It was always there, underneath. The noise, like the ocean beneath the waves. And when we learn to drop below the surface, we discover an infinite reservoir of peace. Sometimes people think stillness means silence, but true stillness can include sound. It can include movement. It can include pain. Stillness is not the absence of experience, but the absence of reactivity to experience. You can be having a difficult conversation and still be rooted in the silence of your being. In fact, the more you practice resting in stillness, the more you can carry it into every moment of your life. You begin to respond rather than react. You begin to hear others more deeply because your own inner noise is not competing for attention. You begin to notice beauty in small things, the way sunlight hits a wall, the rhythm of footsteps, the kindness in someone's eyes. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or perfect. Challenges still arise, but you meet them differently. You face them from a place of stability, not desperation. From spaciousness, not contraction. Think of it like being the eye of the hurricane. The storm still rages around you, but in the center there is stillness. That center is your true nature. And the more you rest there, the sounds around you, not labeling them or resisting them, just noticing. Let the sounds be as they are. Now, bring your attention to your breath. Notice the rise and fall in your belly or your chest. Let your mind be like a vast sky, and let the breath be a gentle cloud drifting through it, if thoughts arise. Let them come and go like birds passing through. No need to chase or cling to any of them. Just rest in the awareness that notices it all. Can you feel the stillness now? It may be subtle at first, a quiet beneath the quiet. This is your home. This is what doesn't change. You can always return here, no matter what is happening outside, no matter how loud the world becomes. This stillness is your refuge, and as you rise from this practice and re-enter the noise of daily life, you may find that something inside you remains quiet. Something inside you is no longer swept away. This is the fruit of mindfulness. This is the gift of the path. Not a life without problems, but a heart that is free in the midst of them. Not the absence of noise, but the discovery of the stillness. Beneath it, as the Zen saying goes, when the mind is still, the universe surrenders. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And in this inner stillness, you become a sanctuary, not only for yourself, but for everyone you meet. So walk gently now, speak kindly, listen deeply, and remember that beneath all the noise, you are still, you are whole, you are home, and nothing can take that from you. Stop resisting life. Let go of anxiety. In the heart of every struggle lies a quiet truth. Much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from how we resist what happens. Life moves like a river, always changing, always flowing. But the mind, when trapped in fear, anxiety, or attachment, tries to dam the current to control the uncontrollable. In Buddhism, this resistance is the root of suffering, and learning to let go is the doorway to peace. Today, we will explore how Buddhist teachings offer a profound and gentle way to meet anxiety, not with struggle, but with presence. This is not about suppressing anxiety or pretending it doesn't exist. It is about understanding the true nature of our experience, softening our grip on control, and allowing life to be what it is. Chapter 1. That suffering arises from clinging to pleasure, to certainty, to identity. When something unpleasant happens, we resist. We push it away, deny it, argue with it. This inner resistance turns pain into suffering. The Buddha used the metaphor of two arrows. The first arrow is the pain of life loss, change, illness, uncertainty. The second arrow is the suffering we add to the pain, the thoughts, judgments, fears, and resistance. While we may not always control the first arrow, we can learn to stop shooting the second. Resistance creates tension in the body, contraction in the heart, and confusion in the mind. We start to believe that life is the enemy and that peace will come only when everything is perfect. But Buddhism gently points us in a different direction. Chapter 2. The Wisdom of Impermanence. Everything changes. This is the first noble truth of Buddhism. Whether it's joy or sorrow, gain or loss, clarity or confusion, all things are in motion. Anxiety arises when we fear change or try to hold on to what must pass. But if we truly understand impermanence, we begin to loosen our grip. Imagine anxiety like a wave on the ocean. It rises, peaks, and falls. No wave lasts forever. In the same way, no emotion, no situation, no thought has permanent residence. When we stop resisting the wave, we can ride it with grace. The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. To live in harmony with change is to live in harmony with life itself. Chapter 3. Mindfulness and the present moment. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present with what is. Not judging, not fixing, just seeing clearly. When anxiety arises, mindfulness allows us to observe it without being consumed by it. Instead of spiraling into fearful thoughts about the future, we bring our attention back to this breath, this body, this moment. We ask gently, what is here right now? Often, anxiety lives in the future, in the imagined catastrophe that hasn't yet happened. But in this present moment, more often than not, we are safe. We are breathing. We are okay. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Zen master, reminds us the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. Chapter 4. The breath as an anchor. When the mind races, the breath brings us home. In Buddhism, the breath is not just a physical function. It is a sacred doorway to awareness, to calm, to truth. When anxiety surges, we return to the breath. We don't try to change it, we just notice it. Inhale, exhale. We allow the breath to be natural, like a gentle tide. Try this as you breathe in. Silently say, breathing in, I calm my body. As you breathe out, say, breathing out, I calm my mind. This simple practice brings nervous energy back into grounded presence. Chapter 5. Non-attachment and inner freedom. Much of our anxiety comes from attachment to outcomes, to people's opinions, to how things should be. But Buddhism teaches us the joy of new attachment. This doesn't mean we don't care. It means we care without clinging. When we release the need to control what is outside our power, we rediscover peace. We stop fighting life and begin flowing. With it, non-attachment is like opening the hand that clutches too tightly. It is the difference between holding a bird gently and caging it. One allows life to move. The other tries to possess it and suffers. Chapter 6. Loving kindness toward yourself in moments of anxiety. We often turn against ourselves. We blame, judge, or shame our feelings. But Buddhism offers a radical alternative, loving-kindness. Just as we would comfort a frightened child, we learn to comfort our own heart. We place a hand on the chest, take a breath, and say, it's okay to feel this. We don't need to fix everything. We only need to show up with tenderness. Chapter 7. Surrendering to what is there is deep wisdom in surrender, not as defeat, but as trust. We surrender to the truth that we cannot control all things. We surrender to the present moment as it is. This surrender softens the heart. It allows us to stop fighting what we cannot change. It opens the doorway to a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. As Zen master Shunryu Suzuki said, when you do something, you should burn yourself up completely, like a good bonfire, leaving no trace of yourself. Chapter 8. Daily practice. For inner peace, Buddhist teachings are not just ideas, they are living practices. To let go of anxiety and stop resisting life, we must practice daily. Here are simple practices. Begin each day with 3 mindful breaths. Take a mindful walk, noticing each step. When anxiety arises, return to the breath. Practice loving-kindness phrases. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. Reflect on impermanence. This too shall pass. Conclusion: letting go is coming home. In the end, letting go of resistance is not a loss, it is a return. A return to your natural state of peace, of openness, of ease. Anxiety may still arise, but now you meet it with awareness. You hold it gently, breathe with it, and let it pass. You remember that you are not your thoughts, not your fears. You are the space in which they arise and fall. When you stop resisting life, you come home to life. And that is the heart of the Buddhist path. Not escape, not avoidance, but compassionate presence. So let the river flow, let life move, let the breath anchor you, and let the peace that has always been within you rise like the morning sun, quiet and unstoppable. May you be free. May you be at ease. May you come home to yourself. The struggle beneath the surface anxiety is not just a feeling of restlessness or fear. It is often the surface ripple of a deeper inner resistance, a refusal, conscious or unconscious, to accept what is. In the teachings of Zen Buddhism, anxiety is not something to be conquered, but something to be understood, not a monster to slay, but a messenger to listen to. The Buddha never promised a life free from challenges. What he offered instead was a path to freedom in the midst of those challenges, a way of being that is no longer at war with reality. This teaching begins not with trying to fix yourself, but with stopping the internal struggle, long enough to see clearly what is really happening. Chapter 1. The root of suffering is resistance. Imagine a river. Now imagine a person falling into that river and beginning to drown. Not because the current is too strong, but because they're thrashing and fighting against the flow. In Zen, life is the river, and anxiety arises when we resist the current, when we demand life go our way, when we grip tightly to control, when we reject what is. The Buddha called this resistance dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more precisely understood as the feeling of friction between reality and how we want it to be. To stop resisting life does not mean to passively accept everything that happens. It means to meet each moment as it is, not with fear, not with judgment, but with presence. This is the beginning of freedom. Chapter 2. The second arrow. The mind's reaction. The Buddha told a parable. If you are struck by an arrow, does it hurt? Yes. But what if a second arrow is shot, not by your enemy, but by yourself? That second arrow is worse. The first arrow is pain. It is life's unavoidable difficulty, illness, loss, uncertainty. The second arrow is our mental reaction. Why is this happening to me? I can't handle this. This shouldn't be happening. Anxiety often comes not from the event itself, but from the mind's attempt to control, avoid, or judge what is happening. Recognizing the second arrow is the first step in softening it. You cannot always avoid the first arrow, but you can stop firing the second. Chapter 3. Impermanence. Everything passes. What you're feeling now is not forever. This is one of the most compassionate truths of Buddhism. Anxiety tells you, this will always be here. You will always feel like this. But reality whispers something else. Everything changes. Everything passes. The practice of Zen is learning to rest in that truth, not just intellectually, but experientially. To notice that the wave of panic, the surge of worry, the storm of racing thoughts all arise. Crest and fall, like clouds in the sky. Emotions are visitors. You are the sky. You are not broken. You are simply hosting some difficult weather. When you stop trying to outrun the storm and instead become the space that holds it, the storm begins to lose its power over you. Chapter 4. Mindfulness. Meeting anxiety with presence. Mindfulness means paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, without judgment, in the context of anxiety. Mindfulness is a radical act of self-kindness. Rather than pushing anxiety away, you turn toward it with curiosity and care. You might gently say to yourself, anxiety is here. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, racing thoughts. I see you. you are not indulging the anxiety. You are not feeding it. You are simply acknowledging its presence, like seeing a child having a tantrum and kneeling beside them, saying, "I'm here." This presence is powerful. In the light of awareness, even the darkest emotions begin to soften. Chapter 5, the breath, a sanctuary in every moment when everything feels out of control. The breath is your anchor, not by forcing it, not by manipulating it, but by returning to it with reverence. Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Each inhale is a reminder you are alive. Each exhale is a practice in letting go." When anxiety floods your system, place your attention on the breath, not to make it perfect, not to eliminate the anxiety, but simply to be with yourself in a moment of inner refuge. You are not alone, you are breathing, and each breath is a returning home. Chapter 6, compassion for the self. How often do we respond to anxiety with more anxiety? We say, "Why am I like this? What's wrong with me?" But this only adds more resistance. Zen invites you to practice compassion, not as a technique, but as a posture toward yourself. Imagine anxiety as a frightened child inside you. How would you treat them? Would you scold them? Would you shove them away? Or would you hold them gently and say, "I see you. I know you're scared, and I'm here with you." This is what it means to stop resisting. Not to eliminate fear, but to meet it with understanding. Chapter 7, acceptance. The end of inner war acceptance is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is laying down the inner weapons of resistance, the constant fight to make things different, and meeting reality as it is. In Zen, this is the heart of liberation. When you stop trying to push anxiety away, you create space. And in that space, something incredible happens. You realize anxiety is not the enemy. It's just energy. It's just sensation. It's just the body's way of asking for attention. When you accept anxiety's presence, you begin to hear its wisdom. Sometimes it says, "You're overworking." Sometimes it says, "You're not listening to your needs." Sometimes it just says, "I'm scared." And in that listening, you begin to heal. Chapter 8, the stillness beneath the noise. There is a stillness that has never been disturbed. Beneath the anxious thoughts, beneath the racing heart, beneath the waves of fear, there is something that remains untouched. Zen calls this your original nature, the silent presence that has always been with you. You don't need to create this stillness. You only need to remember it, to touch it, to trust it. Right now, even in this moment, it is here, waiting quietly for your return. Can you feel it? The gentle quiet beneath your thoughts. That's who you are. Not the panic, not the fear, not the tightness. You are the space that holds all of it with compassion. Chapter 9, no self. No fear. One of the most profound insights of Buddhism is that what we think of as self is not fixed, not solid, not permanent. Much of our anxiety comes from trying to protect this idea of me, my reputation, my future, my success, my failure. But in Zen, we discover that the self is like a story, helpful sometimes, but ultimately fluid, impermanent, constructed. When you see through the illusion of a fixed self, so much fear dissolves. There is no self to protect, just life unfolding moment by moment. And in that recognition, profound peace arises, closing, returning to the flow of life. You don't need to become fearless to be free. You simply need to stop being at war with fear. When you stop resisting life, when you stop demanding certainty and perfection, you begin to flow again with the rhythm of reality. This is the teaching of Zen. Not escape from life, but intimate presence with life. Breath by breath, step by step, moment by moment. And in this deep letting go, you finally discover you were never broken. You were just holding on too tightly. Let go now and return home. In the quiet of the early morning, before the world has yet stirred, A Zen monk sits in stillness beneath an ancient Bodhi tree. The wind moves gently through the leaves, and birds offer their dawn songs without demand. In this silence, something ancient whispers a teaching passed down through the centuries. The root of suffering is resistance. This is not a mere philosophy. It is a direct insight into the way the mind clings, tightens, and wars against what is. The Buddha taught this not as a metaphysical speculation, but as an observable truth of human life. Look deeply, and you will see. Suffering doesn't come only from pain, loss, or difficulty. It comes from our refusal to allow what is already here. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. When the river runs smoothly, we feel at peace. But when a storm comes and the waters rise, we begin to panic, trying to stop the current with our bare hands. We brace, tense, resist, yet the river keeps flowing. In the same way, life brings change, discomfort, uncertainty, and loss. When we meet it with grasping or aversion, we suffer. When we soften, allow, and flow with it, we find unexpected peace. Resistance is a natural reflex of the conditioned mind. It shows up in subtle ways: a tightening in the chest when plans are disrupted, a surge of anger when someone disagrees with us, a swirl of anxiety when the future feels uncertain. We push away discomfort and cling to pleasure. We divide the world into good and bad, pleasant and painful, trying to construct a life that only includes half of reality. But this separation creates inner conflict. Life doesn't comply with our demands. The rain falls whether or not we scheduled a picnic. People come and go regardless of our longing. Our bodies age even as we try to preserve them. The truth is, life includes both joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death. The more we try to exclude pain, the more we suffer. Take, for example, Arun, a young man who came to a Zen monastery after a series of painful losses. His father had died suddenly. His relationship had ended. He had lost his job. In the same year, Arun came seeking peace, but what he carried was a heart full of resistance. He believed these things should not have happened, and his mind replayed the past with endless questions. Why me? What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? The Zen master, seeing Arun's suffering, handed him a cup filled to the brim with tea and said, Arun tried carefully, watching the cup with intense focus. But a bird startled him, and a few drops fell. He returned, apologetic. The master smiled and said, This is your mind. So busy trying not to spill anything, you miss the beauty of the garden. Resistance narrows our awareness. It contracts our heart and binds us in fear. Instead of living fully, we become preoccupied with control. But control is an illusion. Even the breath, if held too tightly, turns into suffocation. The Buddha described this resistance as tanha, or thirst. It manifests in three forms: craving for pleasure, aversion to pain, and clinging to identity. All three are subtle ways of resisting the truth of impermanence. We want things to be different than they are. We grasp for a permanent sense of self in a world that is fluid and changing. When we resist change, we suffer. When we cling to pleasure, we suffer. When we push away pain, we suffer. This is the core insight of the first noble truth. Life contains suffering, and the second noble truth reveals its cause. Our resistance to life as it is, yet within this understanding, is also the key to freedom. If resistance creates suffering, then releasing resistance brings peace. This is not about passivity or apathy. It's about meeting life with openness instead of armoring ourselves against it. It's about softening around discomfort instead of fighting it. Consider the practice of mindful breathing. At first, it may seem too simple to matter, but sit quietly, breathe gently, and observe what arises. Soon, you may notice a tightness in the belly, a swirl of thought, an urge to distract. These are forms of resistance. Instead of pushing them away, simply observe them. Let them be. breathe with them. Over time, the breath teaches you something profound. You can stay with what is. You can allow tension without becoming it. You can witness anger without being consumed by it. Feel sadness without drowning. A great Zen saying goes, "Let go or be dragged." Resistance is what drags us. Letting go is not giving up. It is releasing the illusion that life must conform to our expectations. Think of a lotus growing in muddy water. It doesn't resist the mud, it rises through it, reaching for the sun. In the same way, peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the willingness to bloom amidst it. We see this in the lives of those who have suffered deeply and yet radiate compassion. The old woman who lost her son and now tends a community garden, nurturing life. The man who survived illness and now teaches others to meditate. They did not escape suffering. They stopped resisting it. They allowed it to break their hearts open instead of closed. The first step in ending the inner war is simply to recognize resistance. Begin to notice where you tense, where you argue with reality, where you say, "This should not be happening," and then pause, breathe. Invite a softening. Ask gently, "What am I unwilling to feel?" Often, we resist not the event itself, but the emotion it brings. We fear sadness, so we resist grief. We fear helplessness, so we resist vulnerability. But when we turn toward the feeling instead of away, it begins to move. Emotions are like waves. They arise, crest, and pass. It is our clinging that makes them linger. You can practice this in small ways throughout the day. When the traffic slows, instead of gripping the wheel, exhale. When someone interrupts you, instead of reacting, notice your breath. When fear arises, meet it with the gentleness you would offer a child. Every time you pause, instead of react, soften instead of brace, you are transforming suffering at its root. You are choosing to let life flow through you instead of crashing against your defenses. The journey of awakening begins with this simple truth. What we resist persists, and what we allow transforms. The monk beneath the Bodhi tree does not try to change the wind. He lets it pass through him. He lets the birdsong enter his ears without needing to possess it. He lets the breath rise and fall without effort. In that simplicity, he finds freedom. You too can begin here. Wherever you are, whatever you are feeling, pause. Let go of the mental fight. Breathe. This moment, just as it is your doorway to peace. This is not just the beginning of a chapter. It is the beginning of a new way of living. A life that doesn't resist the current, but flows with it. A life that meets each moment with open hands. In the words of the Buddha, just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again. Let this be the shedding. Let this be the moment you stop resisting and start resting in the truth. That freedom is found not in the perfect life, but in the perfect allowing of life. In the quiet halls of Buddhist wisdom, there is a teaching so profound and simple that it holds the power to transform the way we suffer. It is known as the parable of the two arrows. The Buddha once asked his disciples, if a person is struck by an arrow, is it painful? They replied, yes, it is painful. Then the Buddha asked, if the person is struck a second time by another arrow, is it even more painful? They answered, of course, it is more painful. And the Buddha said, in life, we cannot always avoid the first arrow. It is the pain that comes with being human. Illness, loss, rejection, death, these arrows will find us all. But the second arrow is our own reaction to the pain. It is the anger, the blame, the mental spinning, the resistance, the fear. And this second arrow is optional. With this simple parable, the Buddha revealed a radical truth. Most of our suffering does not come from the painful event itself, but from the mind's reaction to it. The second arrow, born from judgment, resistance, and reactivity, causes far more harm than the first. In this chapter, we explore this second arrow in depth. We look at how the mind creates suffering in response to pain, and how Buddhist mindfulness allows us to disarm the second arrow before it strikes. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. To be alive is to feel pain. This is not a mistake or a punishment. It is the natural reality of an impermanent world. Bodies age and fall ill. People we love leave or die. Plans fall apart. Disappointments arise. This is the first arrow, life. But what happens next is where the true suffering begins. We might be rejected by someone we care about. That rejection is painful. It hurts. That's the first arrow. But then the mind leaps in. Why did this happen to me? I'll never be good enough. I must not be lovable. I always get abandoned. These thoughts become the second arrow, and we stab ourselves with them over and over. The pain of rejection is bad enough. But the stories we add to it create an entire world of unnecessary suffering. We dwell, we ruminate, we turn a moment of pain into a narrative of lifelong failure. We do this with everything. A headache becomes a worry about our health. A mistake at work becomes a fear of being fired. An argument with a loved one becomes a sign that the relationship is doomed. The second arrow is the psychological and emotional suffering we create with our own mind. And the miracle of Buddhist practice is that we can learn to stop shooting that second arrow. The anatomy of the second arrow. What does the second arrow look like in everyday life? It might be blaming yourself for feeling sad or anxious, judging others harshly for your disappointment, replaying a painful memory again and again, trying to fix or control everything to avoid discomfort, telling yourself this should not be happening, believing you must get rid of the pain immediately, feeling ashamed of being imperfect or vulnerable. Each of these mental habits is a form of resistance to what is happening. Each one tightens the knot of suffering rather than loosening it. The second arrow is insidious because it feels like we are helping ourselves by thinking this way. We believe that if we worry enough, we'll prevent future pain. If we analyze the problem enough, we'll fix it. If we blame ourselves enough, we'll become better. But in truth, the second arrow paralyzes us. It traps us in a loop of pain and self-judgment. And the more we resist our suffering, the more it grows. As the saying goes, what we resist persists. Recognizing the second arrow in the moment. The first step in working with the second arrow is awareness. You cannot let go of something you don't see. So begin to notice when pain arises. What happens next in your mind? Do you begin to spiral into self-blame, judgment, or anxiety? Do you try to fix the situation immediately or numb yourself with distractions? A mindfulness practice can help here. When something painful occurs, pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, is this the first arrow or the second? Sometimes, just labeling it is enough to break the spell. You might say, this is the second arrow. I'm adding suffering to the pain. This is a reaction, not the reality. I'm spinning a story about this. As you build this habit of recognition, you become more skillful at catching the second arrow before it takes hold. You begin to see the space between pain and your reaction to pain. And in that space lies your freedom. Meeting the first arrow with compassion. If the second arrow is our resistance, then the antidote is compassion. Instead of shooting ourselves with blame or shame, we can learn to meet the first arrow, the pain, with kindness. We can say to ourselves, this hurts, and that's okay. May I be gentle with myself in this moment. Pain is part of life. I'm not alone. This simple shift from judgment to compassion transforms everything. It does not take away the pain, but it removes the second layer of suffering. It turns the wound into a place of care rather than violence. It allows the heart to soften rather than harden. And from this place of inner gentleness, healing becomes possible. The practice, observing without adding in meditation, you can begin to practice experiencing pain without adding the second arrow. Find a quiet place and sit comfortably. Bring your attention to your breath. When a difficult emotion or sensation arises, Instead of pushing it away or analyzing it, simply observe it. Feel it directly in your body. Notice its texture, its temperature, its movement. Say to yourself, "This is the first arrow. I choose not to shoot the second." Let the pain be there without story, without identity, without needing it to go away. Often you'll find that the pain begins to shift simply by being met with presence. It may soften, dissolve, or change form, or it may stay. Either way, your relationship to it changes. You are no longer at war. With your experience, you are simply present. Stories from the Path 1. Maria and her panic. Attacks. Maria suffered from panic attacks for years. Every time she felt her heart racing or chest tightening, she would spiral into terror. What if I die? What if I'm losing control? I can't handle this. This fear of the fear made her symptoms worse. The second arrow of panic about the panic was causing more suffering than the physical sensations themselves. Through mindfulness training, Maria learned to pause when panic arose. She would say to herself, "This is the first arrow. The sensations, let me not add the second." She began to greet her symptoms with curiosity. What does this feel like? Can I breathe with it? Can I stay present? Over time, the panic attacks still came, but they no longer ruled her life. She had learned how to meet them, with presence, not panic. 2. James and his divorce. After his divorce, James felt intense grief. But what hurt even more were his thoughts. "I'm a failure. She never loved me. I wasted 10 years. These were the second arrows. They kept him stuck in bitterness. Through Buddhist counseling, he began to see the difference between pain and suffering. He still grieved the loss, but he stopped feeding the mental stories. He practiced saying, "This is grief. This is love," in another form, and slowly peace returned. Letting go of the second arrow, life will continue to shoot first arrows at you. There is no escape from that, but you have a choice about how you meet them. Will you shoot the second arrow, or will you choose awareness instead? This is the path of freedom. Not the freedom to avoid pain, but the freedom to stop creating more pain with your own mind. Each moment offers the opportunity to pause, to notice, to choose presence over reaction. This is the heart of Buddhist practice, and this is how we let go of unnecessary suffering, one breath at a time. Closing. Reflection. Take a moment now to sit quietly. Bring to mind a recent moment of pain, a difficult conversation, a disappointment, a feeling of fear or loneliness. Now notice, what was the first arrow? What was the second? Can you feel the difference between the pain and your reaction to the pain? Now, imagine meeting the first arrow with compassion, with tenderness, with spacious awareness, and as you do, feel the second arrow begin to dissolve. This is your power. This is your practice. This is your path. In the hush of the early morning temple, before the birds begin their chorus, a Zen monk slowly sweeps fallen leaves from the monastery path. Each leaf, delicate and transient, is a quiet teacher of a truth too often forgotten. Everything passes, impermanence, or anicca in Pali, is one of the 3 marks of existence in Buddhist philosophy. Alongside suffering, dukkha, and non-self, unnetta, it is the truth that underlies all things, that all phenomena from the breath in your lungs to the stars overhead arise and pass away. Nothing lasts. Nothing remains unchanged. Yet for most of us, impermanence is not a comfort. It is a truth. We resist, and in that resistance, we suffer. The beauty and fear of change. A child grows, a flower blooms, a loved one laughs, all of it fleeting. This fleeting nature of life can evoke a strange combination of awe and fear. We want to hold on to what is beautiful, meaningful, and familiar. We wish to freeze time at moments of joy, but time never stops. We cling to youth, to praise, to relationships, to identity, and we dread loss, aging, endings. In doing so, we invite anxiety, attachment, and grief. But what if impermanence isn't our enemy? What if it is the very doorway to peace? The story of the Golden Bowl, Zen story, tells of a master who gave a disciple a golden bowl. The bowl was beautiful, shimmering in the morning sun. Heartbroken, he brought the pieces to his master, who simply nodded and said, "Now you understand the nature of the bowl. Everything we cherish is already broken." Not in a fatalistic sense, but in the sense that it is destined to change, to end. When we deeply realize this, we begin to hold things differently, with appreciation instead of clinging, with love instead of possession. Why we resist impermanence? The human mind, driven by ego and craving, wants certainty. We want guarantees of happiness, permanence in our relationships, stability in our lives. But the world doesn't operate on our desires. Life moves in cycles, not straight lines. There are seasons of gain and seasons of loss, moments of health and moments of illness, births and deaths. When we forget impermanence, we are shocked when things fall apart. We are devastated when people change. We feel betrayed by life when plans crumble. But when we contemplate impermanence daily, we soften. We begin to expect change. And with that expectation comes peace. Meditating on change Buddhist practice often involves contemplating impermanence through meditation. Is to observe the breath. Each inhalation arises. Each exhalation passes away. No breath can be held forever. No sensation lasts unchanged. Emotions come and go. Thoughts arise and dissolve. Try this now. Sit quietly, breathe gently. Notice the breath as it enters. Notice it as it leaves. Feel the impermanence of this one breath. Now extend your awareness. Notice how the body changes moment to moment, how thoughts shift, how sounds around you rise and fall. Everything is in motion. This is not a problem to solve. It is a reality to befriend. The falling leaves. The Zen monk who sweeps the leaves each morning is not trying to stop them from falling. He is simply present with what is. He knows the wind will blow more leaves tomorrow, that his sweeping is not a task to be completed forever, but a way to meet the moment. In the same way, we can meet life as it is, in constant motion. We don't have to stop the leaves from falling. We only have to learn how to be with the falling, loss, and the depth of love. Impermanence is most painful when it touches those we love. A parent ages, a partner leaves, a friend dies. The grief can be overwhelming, but grief too is the echo of love. We love, but because we cling. Clinging says, "This must stay. This cannot change." Love says, "I will walk with you as long as I can, and let you go when I must." To open to impermanence is to deepen our capacity for real love that is spacious, tender, and free. The blossoming moment there is a Zen saying, "The flower falls, though we love it. The weed grows, though we do not love it." This is the nature of reality. It moves with its own rhythm. Our job is not to control the rhythm, but to dance with it, to find beauty in the falling flower and teaching in the stubborn weed. Everything you are experiencing now will change. That might sound sobering, but it also means that everything painful will pass too. Heartbreak will heal. Anxiety will ease. Even the deepest grief will soften. And so, we learn to ride the wave of life with a calm heart, knowing that no wave lasts forever. Letting go and living fully impermanence doesn't ask us to be indifferent. It asks us to care more deeply. The preciousness of what we have. When you know your child will grow up, you listen more closely to their stories. When you know your health may fade, you cherish your morning walks. When you know a sunset will last only minutes, you truly watch. This is the paradox. Impermanence makes life more vivid, not less. The point is not to detach from life, but to engage with it more fully, because we understand its fleeting nature. Each moment becomes a treasure, not because it will last, but because it won't. Reflective practice, contemplating change set, Aside time each day to reflect on the impermanence you have witnessed. What changed today? What did you lose? What did you gain? What moments passed that you didn't fully notice? This reflection isn't to create fear, it's to wake us up. A gentle returning the end impermanence leads us back to presence. When we accept that we can't hold on, we return to what is here. This moment, this breath, this experience, and in this return, we find peace. Not the peace of unchanging circumstances, but the peace of a heart aligned with reality. A cherry blossom doesn't bloom forever, but in its brief bloom, it gives everything. So too can we let us live, not to possess, but to witness, not to cling, but to cherish, not to resist change, but to bow to its wisdom, for everything passes. And in that passing, everything is revealed. The leaves fall, let the river flow. Let the heart open, all things arise and pass away. And that's okay. In the quiet simplicity of the present moment lies a doorway to freedom. A freedom not from life, but in life. In the Buddhist understanding, is not a mistake. It is not a flaw in your design or an enemy to be vanquished. Anxiety is a signal, a messenger, a manifestation of craving and aversion intermingled. Craving for safety, certainty, and control. Aversion to the unknown, the uncontrollable, the impermanent. And yet, our habitual response to anxiety is more anxiety. We feel it arise in the body, the racing heart, the tight chest, the shallow breath, and the mind recoils. We resist it, we judge it, we create stories around it, we identify with it. I am anxious, we say, as if anxiety is the sum total of who we are. But mindfulness offers another way. The Buddha described mindfulness as the direct path to liberation. It is not a technique to get rid of unpleasant experiences, without resistance, without clinging, without identification. To meet anxiety with mindfulness is to say, this too belongs. This too is part of my human experience. And in doing so, we begin to discover something astonishing, that what we call anxiety is not a solid block, not a permanent state, but a constellation of changing sensations, thoughts, and feelings. Arising and passing in awareness, the three qualities of mindfulness too, understand how mindfulness transforms our relationship with anxiety. We must first understand the three essential qualities it brings. Awareness is the clear seeing of what is present, not what you want to be there, not what you fear might be there, but what is actually here, now. This includes physical sensations, emotions, thoughts, and the felt sense of the body. Acceptance is the radical act of allowing, not passive resignation, but a courageous willingness to feel. It says, I am willing to be with this as it is. Non-identification is the understanding that what arises in awareness is not the self. You are not your anxiety. You are the one who is aware of anxiety. These three qualities allow us to turn toward our experience rather than away. And that turning is everything. Anxiety and the future mind anxiety lives in the future. It feeds on the unknown, on what might go wrong, on imagined outcomes and hypothetical disasters. But mindfulness lives only in the present. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen master, often said, the present moment is the only moment in which we can be alive. This is not just spiritual poetry, it is a precise antidote to anxiety. For when we return to the present moment, anxiety has no place to stand. It cannot exist in the breath you are taking right now. It cannot inhabit the sensation of your feet touching the floor. When you practice mindfulness, you reclaim the present. You return home, a simple practice. The 4 anchors when anxiety arises. Begin by anchoring attention in the body. Here is a simple practice you can use. Based on the 4 classical foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, notice your posture. Feel the contact between your body and the earth. What sensations are present? Mindfulness of feeling tone. Notice the emotional flavor of the moment. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is not about analysis, just noticing. Mindfulness of the mind. What thoughts are moving through the mind? Are they fast or slow, loud or quiet, repetitive or scattered? See them as mental events, not truths. Mindfulness. Of mental objects, notice your relationship to the experience. Are you resisting, clinging, judging? Simply observe the mental patterns without needing to change them. This process brings anxiety out of the shadows and into the light of awareness. And in that light, something shifts. Anxiety begins to lose its power when it is seen clearly and held gently. The breath, as refuge, the breath, is one of the most profound tools in mindfulness practice. It is always here. It cannot happen in the future or the past. It is now. When you feel overwhelmed, return to the breath. Place your attention gently on the inhale. Then the exhale, one breath at a time. Let the breath become your anchor, your refuge, your home base. Not to escape the anxiety, but to hold it with kindness. You can silently say, with each inhale, breathing in, I know I am breathing in. And with each exhale, breathing out, I know I am breathing out. This simple presence interrupts the chain reaction of anxious thought. And in that space, you may find something unexpected. Calm, meeting the inner critic with mindfulness. Anxiety is not just about the outer world, but about how we treat ourselves in the midst of struggle. The inner critic arises. Why are you like this? Why can't you just relax? What's wrong with you? But the voice of mindfulness is different. It says, oh, sweetheart, you're struggling right now. Let's take a moment and be kind. This shift from judgment to compassion is itself a miracle. It doesn't eliminate anxiety, but it transforms the environment in which anxiety is held. Instead of being surrounded by harshness, the anxious part of you is held in warmth. Jon Kabat-Zinn once said, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. Mindfulness is how we surf. It doesn't flatten the waves of anxiety, but it teaches us to ride them with balance and grace. The paradox of allowing, the great paradox of mindfulness, is that the more we allow our experience to be as it is, the more it transforms. When you stop trying to get rid of anxiety, you create the conditions in which it can dissolve on its own. Imagine anxiety as a small child knocking at your door. If you ignore her, she knocks louder. If you yell at her, she cries. But if you open the door, kneel down, and say, I see you're scared. Come sit with me. Something softens. The same is true for our anxious mind. It doesn't want to be fixed. It wants to be seen, heard, and loved. Real-life stories embodying presence. Consider Maya, a nurse who began practicing mindfulness after experiencing panic attacks on the job. Instead of quitting her profession, she learned to pause when anxiety arose. She would feel her feet on the ground, notice the tightness in her chest, and breathe. I still feel anxious sometimes, she says, but it doesn't run me anymore. I meet it, I breathe with it, I let it pass. Or Alex, a university student facing academic pressure. He began meditating for 10 minutes each morning. At first, nothing seemed to change. But after several weeks, he noticed he was less reactive during exams. Mindfulness didn't make the stress disappear, he reflects, but it gave me a bigger container to hold it. Mindfulness in everyday life, you don't need a meditation cushion or a quiet room to practice mindfulness. Every moment is an invitation. Washing your hands, feel the water on your skin, drinking tea, savor the warmth and flavor, walking. Feel each step, connect with the earth, talking with a friend, listen without planning your response. Each of these moments strengthens your capacity to meet anxiety with presence. Closing reflection, the space around the flame. Imagine anxiety as a candle flame. It flickers, it burns, it consumes oxygen. Now imagine surrounding that candle with a vast open sky. The flame is still there, but it no longer dominates the space. This is what mindfulness does. It doesn't extinguish the flame of anxiety, but it surrounds it with spacious awareness. And in that space, anxiety no longer defines you. It becomes part of your experience, not the whole of it. Practice invitation as. You end this chapter. Take 5 minutes to sit quietly. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. Feel the breath, feel the life in your body. Say silently to yourself, in this moment, I meet my anxiety with presence. All is held in awareness. Let this be your path, not fighting, not fleeing, but turning gently toward what is true and discovering peace, not in the absence of anxiety, but in your capacity to meet it with love. This is mindfulness. This is freedom. This is the heart of awakening, and you are already on your way. Chapter 5. The breath, a sanctuary in every moment, in this moment. Wherever you are, there is something profoundly sacred unfolding. It is silent, invisible, unassuming, and yet it is the one thing that has stayed with you through every experience of your life, joy or sorrow, calm or fear. It is your breath. Before a thought arises, before an emotion is born, always present, always patient. It asks for nothing and yet gives everything. In Buddhism, and especially in Zen, the breath is considered more than a physiological function. It is the gateway to the present moment, the bridge between body and mind, and the sanctuary we can return to in every storm of life. In this chapter, we will explore how the breath becomes our refuge, not just during formal meditation, but in everyday moments of struggle, anxiety, and confusion. We'll uncover how each breath can anchor you to the here and now, dissolve compulsive thinking, and gently guide you back home to yourself. Section 1. Why the breath matters in Buddhism. The Buddha taught that mindfulness of breathing, known as anapanasati, is a complete path in itself. From calming the body to awakening deep insight, the breath is a tool that reveals the deepest truths of existence. But why the breath? It is subtle but perceptible. It reflects our emotional state, short and shallow when we are afraid or anxious, slow and full when we are calm and present. And unlike the chaotic waves of thought, the breath gives us something simple and trustworthy to rest upon. The breath is not a distraction from life. It is life. And through it, we begin to notice not just our sensations and thoughts, but also our resistance, our grasping, our fears, and our patterns. Through the breath, we can begin to understand the mind. And through the mind, we begin to understand suffering. And through understanding suffering, a schoolteacher in Tokyo who was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. For months, she was overwhelmed by the fear of what might happen, of losing her health, her job, and her ability to live a normal life. At first, but the tighter she gripped, the more exhausted she became. Eventually, she stumbled into a Zen meditation class at a small temple. Not expecting much, the teacher instructed simply, follow your breath. Let it be as it is. Don't fix it, don't fight it, just rest in it. At first it felt meaningless. Her thoughts screamed louder than the silence in the room. But slowly, breath by breath, something shifted. She noticed that every time she let her attention rest on the breath, the mind quieted even for a moment. She noticed that even in pain, the breath remained. And most importantly, she realized that peace was not somewhere in the future. It was possible even now. In the middle of difficulty, the breath had become her sanctuary, not by removing suffering, but by offering a still point amidst it. Section 3. How anxiety hijacks the breath and how the breath brings you back. Anxiety, in Buddhist terms, is a form of clinging. We cling to safety, to certainty, to control. And when the future seems unclear, the mind begins to spin stories of danger, worst-case scenarios. Or it disappears entirely from your awareness. The breath reflects the panic of the mind. But here is the liberating truth. The reverse is also true. When you reconnect with the breath, not to force it, but to be with it, the mind begins to calm. Buddhist monks have known it for centuries. Modern science is only now catching up. By returning to the breath over and over, we tell the body, you are safe. We tell the mind, you don't have to figure it all out right now. We tell the heart, you're allowed to rest. And with that, the cycle of suffering begins to unravel. Section 4. Returning, not controlling. A Zen approach, Zen emphasizes simplicity. And so, when it comes to breath practice, there's no need for complexity. The goal is not to manipulate or perfect the breath. It is simply to return to it. One teacher describes it this way: the breath is not a tool, it is a friend. Treat it as you would a dear companion. If you try to control it, the breath resists. If you chase it, it hides. And that rhythm begins to inform your life. In Zen, we practice shikantaza, just sitting, and within that, there is simply the breath, rising and falling like waves on the ocean. Thoughts arise and pass, sensations come and go. But the breath remains. It is not flashy, but it is faithful. And this faithfulness teaches you how to stay, how to not abandon yourself when things get hard. Section 5. A short guided practice, breathing through difficulty. Let's practice together. Find a quiet place, sit, or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Now bring your attention gently to the breath, just as it is. You don't have to change it. Notice the inhale and the exhale. If the breath is shallow, let it be shallow. If it's deep, let it be deep. Just notice, feel where you sense it most clearly in your nose, your chest, your belly. Now bring the breath into your belly, allowing the abdomen to gently rise on the inhale and fall on the exhale. Inhale ... and exhale, let yourself be breathed. Let go of the need to control. If a thought arises, bow to it and return to the breath. If emotion arises, notice it like a wave and return to the breath. If anxiety arises, greet it with compassion and return to the breath. Let your breath be your home. Again and again, breathe, rest. Receive this moment as it is now. Slowly open your eyes. You don't have to sit on a cushion for 30 minutes to experience the benefits of breath practice. The breath is available to you anytime in the middle of a traffic jam, during a difficult conversation, while washing dishes, or walking under the evening sky. Try this. 1 breath pause before answering a phone call, before speaking in a meeting, before reacting to a trigger. Take 1 conscious breath. Breath and gratitude. As you breathe in, say silently, this breath, anxiety reset. The next time anxiety visits, place 1 hand on your heart and the other on your belly. Breathe, listen. Don't try to fix, just breathe and stay. Small practices done consistently reshape your relationship with life, and slowly, they create a nervous system and a heart that is less reactive and more receptive. Section 7. The breath and the Buddha nature within you. The breath is not just a practice, it is a mirror reflecting your truest nature. The Buddha taught that within each of us is the seed of awakening. It is not something we need to earn or become. It is already here. When you sit with the breath, you are sitting with your own Buddha nature, spacious, wise, and compassionate. Each inhale reminds you, I am alive. Each exhale says, I am enough. There is no judgment in the breath, no past, no future, just the sacred now, held in the rhythm of life itself. As Dogen, the great Zen master, once said, to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be awakened by all things. And what better place to begin than the breath, the humble, silent, faithful friend that is always here. Conclusion. Your sanctuary awaits again and again in this noisy, restless, anxious world. The breath offers sanctuary. Not once, not twice. It welcomes you like a mother welcoming her child home. No shame for having wandered, no punishment for having forgotten. Only this, a gentle embrace, a reminder, a return. The breath is the beginning of peace, and the breath is where peace begins again. So the next time life becomes too much, don't look far, don't run away, just close your eyes, and come home. The sanctuary is already here, waiting in the quiet miracle of your next breath. The forgotten kindness in the teachings of Buddhism. Compassion is a central pillar. We hear about compassion for all beings, for the suffering in the world, for those who harm us, for the dying, the sick, the lost. But there is one direction in which compassion is often forgotten and, perhaps, most urgently needed. Compassion for the self. Many of us have been taught to be kind to others, but harsh with ourselves. We try to motivate ourselves through criticism. We judge ourselves. For every misstep, we believe that self-judgment is humility, that self-sacrifice is virtue, and that self-love is selfish. But the Buddha never taught self-hatred as a path to awakening. In fact, he said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." In this chapter, we explore how true healing and awakening begin not with spiritual perfection or external achievement, but with the radical practice of self-compassion. This is not indulgence. This is not ego. This is the soil in which the seeds of inner peace can finally take root. Section 1. The voice of the inner critic. Imagine for a moment the way you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, a missed deadline, a forgotten promise, a moment of anger, a habit you can't break. Now imagine saying those same words to a dear friend. Could you do it? Could you look into the eyes of someone you love and say, "You're so stupid, you're a failure, you never get it right"? And yet, this is how many of us speak to ourselves every day. The inner critic masquerades as discipline. It whispers that if we're just hard enough on ourselves, we will finally become worthy. But this voice does not lead to transformation. It leads to shame, anxiety, paralysis, and burnout. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from aversion, and clinging and self-judgment is a form of aversion, a refusal to allow ourselves to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow. Self-compassion, then, is not a weakness. It is the courageous act of turning toward our suffering instead of against it. Section 2. The myth of self-improventure is a deep and often unspoken belief in our modern world that we must earn our right to rest, to love, to be okay. We treat healing like a project, growth like a race. We read books, attend seminars, download meditation apps, all in the hope that one day we will arrive at the version of ourselves that is finally enough. But Buddhist practice is not about self-improvement. It is about self-liberation, and liberation begins when we stop trying to become someone else and start being fully present with who we are. Consider the lotus flower, a symbol of awakening in Buddhism. It grows from the mud, not in spite of the mud, but because of it. Your flaws, your wounds, your messy emotions are not obstacles to your path. They are your path. Section 3. A story from the Buddha's life. There is a story of the Buddha in his early years of seeking. He practiced severe asceticism, pushing his body to the edge of death, believing that denial and self-punishment would lead to enlightenment. One day, weak from fasting, he collapsed by a riverbank. A young girl named Sujata saw him and offered him a bowl of rice milk. He hesitated, but then accepted. This moment of receiving nourishment, of allowing compassion, became the turning point. The Buddha realized that self-mortification was not the path. From that day on, he walked the middle way, a path of balance, kindness, and wisdom. This story reminds us, the path is not to break ourselves, but to care for ourselves even. The Buddha had to learn this. Section 4. What is self-compassion? Dr. Krista Neff, a modern researcher and Buddhist practitioner, defines self-compassion with 3 components: mindfulness, recognizing our suffering instead of ignoring it or exaggerating it; common humanity, remembering that imperfection is part of the shared human experience; self-kindness, responding to ourselves with warmth and understanding rather than harsh judgment. In Buddhist terms, self-compassion is an expression of metta-loving kindness directed inward. It is not a feeling, but a practice. a choice we make again and again to treat ourselves as we would treat someone we love. Section 5a. Guided practice. Sending loving kindness to yourself, let us try a simple practice together. Sit comfortably, gently close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the breath. No need to change it. Just feel it moving in and out. Now bring to mind an image of yourself, perhaps as you are today, or maybe a younger version of you who needed love. Silently offer yourself these phrases. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. May I accept myself just as I am. You can repeat these phrases slowly. Let them land gently in the heart. If resistance arises, that's okay. Just notice it. That too deserves compassion. Breathe, stay. Be here for yourself, just like this. Section 6. The obstacles to self-compassion. Is it so hard to be kind to ourselves? For many, there is guilt. A sense that self-care is selfish, that others have it worse, that kindness to self takes away from kindness to others. But the opposite is true. When we are harsh with ourselves, we become reactive, impatient, easily overwhelmed. We try to pour from an empty cup. Self-compassion fills the cup so that we can give from fullness, not depletion. Others fear that if they stop criticizing themselves, they will become lazy or unmotivated. But studies and spiritual traditions alike show the opposite. Compassion fuels resilience. People who are kind to themselves are more likely to take responsibility for mistakes, try again after failure, and persist through challenges. Self-compassion is not the absence of accountability, it is the foundation for it. Section 7. Real stories of transformation. Let's hear the story of Nisha, a young woman from Mumbai who struggled with anxiety and perfectionism. Every mistake felt like a personal failure. Her mind was a courtroom, where she was always the accused. Through a meditation retreat focused on self-compassion, she began to soften. At first, she wept. Then, she rested. Slowly, she started to replace "I'm not good enough" with "I'm doing the best I can." She didn't become perfect. She became real. And in that realness, she found freedom. Section 8. Bringing self-compassion into daily life. Self-compassion is not just something we practice on the cushion. It is a way of living. Here are small ways to embody it. Name it. When you're suffering, say, "This is a moment of suffering." Others feel this too. May I be kind to myself. Soothing touch. Place your hand on your heart or cheek. Let your body feel your own care. Compassion breaks. Pause during your day to breathe and check in. Offer kind words instead of pressure. Write a letter. Write to yourself from the perspective of a wise, loving friend. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, and slowly your inner landscape changes. Section 9. The Buddhist view of self-compassion and emptiness. Buddhism, we often hear about Unnetta, the teaching of nuns. At first, this seems to contradict self-compassion. If there is no self, then who is being kind to whom? But this teaching invites us to soften the rigid boundaries of identity. When we are no longer clinging to a fixed self-image, we can be more forgiving, more fluid, more free. Compassion doesn't require a solid self. It only requires awareness, presence, and an open heart. In fact, realizing the impermanence and interdependence of all things allows us to extend kindness without ego. Conclusion: you have tried hard enough. You have judged yourself long enough. In this moment, you chose something different. What if you became your own ally instead of your enemy? What if you treated yourself with the same tenderness you longed for from others? This is not weakness. This is the beginning of healing. The path to awakening is not paved with self-hatred. It is lit by the lamp of love, and that light must shine inward. So as you breathe now, offer yourself this blessing. May I be at peace with who I am. May I walk this path gently. May I remember that I am worthy of compassion, always. This is the heart of the Dharma. This is the beginning of true freedom. This is home. Conclusion: returning home to yourself in Zen. Freedom does not come from controlling life. It comes from becoming intimate with life. The journey we've taken through these chapters, through suffering, mindfulness, breath, impermanence, compassion, has not been about fixing the self, but about remembering what was never broken. It has been a return to the place we never truly left to return home. To return home to yourself means to meet your life as it is, with nothing left out. It means realizing that you don't need to become someone else, solve every problem, or eliminate every anxious thought to be at peace. You only need to stop resisting what is and rest in the awareness that sees all things rise and fall. Throughout this journey, we've explored how resistance creates suffering. The first arrow wounds us, but it is the second arrow, the story, the reaction, the self-judgment that keeps the pain alive. We've seen how the mind, with its endless narratives, often becomes our own greatest tormentor. But we've also seen how, through presence, mindfulness, and compassion, we can stop shooting ourselves with those second arrows. We've practiced meeting our anxiety not as an enemy to defeat, but as a child calling for our attention. We've learned that the breath is not just a bodily function, but a sacred refuge, always available anchor to the here and now. In every moment of chaos, the breath has been whispering, "Come back, come home." We've explored the truth of impermanence, that all things, even anxiety, even sorrow, pass like clouds across the sky. No feeling is final, no state is forever. And in that truth lies our freedom. When you stop grasping at what is pleasant and stop resisting what is painful, you find a peace that nothing can disturb. We've learned that compassion isn't something we earn through perfection. It's something we extend because we are human. When we speak kindly to ourselves, when we tend to our own pain with the same gentleness we would offer a dear friend, we create the conditions for healing. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is the brave act of standing by yourself, especially when life feels hard. And at last, we've returned to the breath not as a technique, but as a sanctuary, as a doorway into presence, as the constant reminder that we are alive now, and now is always enough. Through each chapter, a truth has been quietly unfolding. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your past. You are the one who sees them all come and go. Like the sky, you remain vast and untouched even when storms move through. You are the open space of awareness, the loving presence that witnesses all of it. This is the return, not to an idea, not to a perfected version of the self, but to the simple, quiet miracle of being. Coming home to yourself means trusting the breath, accepting the moment, honoring your emotions, letting go of control, holding yourself in compassionate. Is not dramatic. It does not require years of effort. It is as close as this very breath. Even now, anxiety may arise. Even now, you might feel uncertainty, but there is no need to resist. There is space for it all, and in that spaciousness, there is peace. So as we close this journey, take a moment to settle, to simply be. Let your shoulders soften, let your jaw unclench. Let your thoughts come and go without needing to follow them. And breathe. Feel the inhale. Arriving. Feel the exhale. Letting go. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to fix anything. You are already home. Let this final moment be a blessing. May you walk gently. May you rest deeply. May you let go of resistance and meet your life with peace. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not the chaos in your mind. You are the one who sees. You are the open sky. You are the breath. You are the stillness, and that is enough. Breathe. You're already home.